This guy had the prettiest girlfriend in school, but she played him, she betrayed him, and now she's gonna pay. The truth nobody knows is that Lindsay Luo got his memories back from the future. He woke up in a panic and couldn't believe it. His body was young again, and he was back in his school dorm. He grabbed his phone and there she was, his girlfriend. That backstabbing traitor. This was perfect. He went back 10 years and now he's got a chance to get revenge. In the future, he became the god of war of the Dragon Continent and took down the Zombie King, but got betrayed and stabbed in the back. And the one who planned all of it? Her, his own girlfriend, who never actually cared about him. She betrayed him in every way possible. Yao was the most beautiful girl in school, and he had felt happy dating her, little knowing that she had been instructed by the young master of the Li family to get close to him even before the apocalypse. The Li family's goal was to use him to expand their territory and then find a way to destroy him. This family was one of the 3 great families of the Dragon Continent, and their influence could not be underestimated. By some chance, the protagonist managed to escape, but at the cost of being disfigured. He spent the next 10 years fleeing and evading the Li family's pursuers. With his strength, he could have taken revenge before he died, and he wished Yao had not been under their protection. Now that he has been reborn, the apocalypse has not yet arrived, and Jinghan is not his girlfriend, so he can get rid of her beforehand. Opening the messages on his phone, he sees a notification. Yao Jinghan says she will not be able to celebrate his birthday because she has to work and apologizes. Reading about private lessons, he knows it is an excuse to meet with the young master of the Li family, remembering that in his past life, he received a homemade movie of the 2 of them as an unforgettable birthday gift. The protagonist then asks to meet her in an abandoned warehouse, since she will be busy at night. The girl asks why they should meet there, and he replies that he needs to deliver a surprise. He did not know why Li Haobo had hated him so much in his past life, and suspected it was because of his father, who was no longer even alive. Back then, he had been eager to spend his birthday with her and was humiliated with the video. Now that he has been reborn, he will not miss the chance to become strong and will not let the tragedy repeat itself. Suddenly, the sky turned red, looking frightening to anyone who stared at it for too long. A person on the street commented that they had heard it was a natural phenomenon that occurred every 5,000 years. He, however, knows that the red-painted sky is the sign that the apocalypse game is coming. At 7 o'clock, the apocalypse will corrode reality, and the world will become a grand game, and he wonders how many people will manage to survive. After that, he goes to the abandoned warehouse and enters. His girlfriend was already waiting for him and asks him to hurry up, as she needs to go to work. Lin gives a fake smile and says she doesn't need to be in a hurry, as he will give her the surprise right now. The girl starts to complain about the silence and threatens to leave, but suddenly Lindsay Luo chokes her. Desperate, Yao Jinghan screams that he's lost his mind. Ignoring her, the protagonist starts to list a series of dates and a specific location. As he says these seemingly meaningless things, Lin pulls a knife from his pocket. The girl, terrified, asks what he's doing and what he's talking about, begging him to stop choking her. Still, Lin continues to mention a date in March and a specific hotel. The girl then realizes that this date and hotel sound very familiar to her. He continues, mentioning the 13th of April and a location at the Wanye bar, and she finally recognizes them as the records from the hotel where she met with Li Haobo. The girl asks him to explain, but her boyfriend just asks how she intends to explain that to him. Then, Lindsay Luo picks up her cell phone, which had fallen to the ground, and opens the message history with a man she calls Master. In the conversation, she says that the special gift is ready, and that Lin believed her lie. Placing a hand on her shoulder and asking her to relax, the protagonist opens a video on the cell phone. He begins to recite the lines from the recording even before the girl in the video says them, showing that he already knows the entire content. He continues repeating all the parts where she belittles him, and she wonders how he can know everything. Lin repeats the line where she says the young master of the Li family had targeted him, and she understands that the video was recorded to entertain the so-called master. In the video, she says that if it weren't for Lin, she would have never been noticed by the family's master, nor would she have achieved her glory. Finally, after humiliating him in various ways, she thanks Lindsay Luo. Still choking his girlfriend, he asks if she's curious about how he knows all this. Shortly after, he lets her go and says she can think about it in hell. At that moment, the protagonist screams at her and attacks her with the knife, managing to knock her to the ground and eliminate her. Then, he collapses heavily to the ground and thinks about the last 10 years that have passed. He begins to cry with relief after the 10 years of suffering he had to endure because of her, repeating to himself that he has finally gotten his revenge and laughing non-stop. Even so, he states that it still wasn't enough. He thinks that, after all, Li Haobo is still hiding in his mansion, and the Li family is in the capital. Suddenly, a system congratulates the boy for being reborn, and announces that the apocalypse game has begun. He finds it strange, as he knows the game wasn't supposed to start before 7 o'clock, and it's still 6 in the evening. Furthermore, he had never heard of the Golden Finger system. The system announces that it's failing to crack the game, to give the protagonist a better experience. As the system binds to his body, it asks Lin to draw the first Super Golden Finger. After the reading, the system congratulates him for obtaining the drop rate. This means that for all the zombies he defeats, the item drop rate will increase to 100%. Guaranteeing that an item will drop with every kill, which is extremely powerful. He knows that normally, the item drop rate in the apocalypse game is only 1%. His personal experience tells him that even when piling up monsters like mountains, you can barely survive. Because of this, he wonders if this Golden Finger system is truly reliable. The system shows that by using the Super Golden Finger, the item drop rate increases from 1 to 100%, leaving our hero stunned by how powerful it is. He also discovers that for every 10 levels he gains, the Super Golden Finger will level up, and completing missions grants rewards. With this system, he believes he can finally destroy the Li family. However, the Li family is one of the 3 great families of the Dragon Continent, and their strength is immeasurable, as they not only have countless soldiers, but also possess secret techniques that enhance their physical abilities. The reason they targeted him in his past life is still unclear, but it seems to be related to his father, who passed away young. He thinks the only way to find out the truth is to infiltrate the family, and his plan is to defeat Li, and then build his power gradually. Now that he has the Golden Finger, he can get stronger, much faster, and defeating the entire family will not be impossible. So, he puts on his hood, determined to carry out his revenge against the Li family, and leaves his ex-girlfriend's body behind. As he walks past the young people on the college campus under a red sky, he notices 2 lovers and knows that soon they will be pitted against each other in the apocalypse. Arriving at a hotel, he asks for a room for an hour, as well as water and bread to stock up on food, in case the Golden Finger isn't reliable. The hotel manager quotes the prices for each of Lindsay Luo's requests. With the money in hand, he asks him not to call for any technicians. Then, he lies down in his room, and notices it's 5 minutes to 7 in the evening. He remembers that in his past life, technician number 3 became the regional zombie boss, and that he eliminated her after she transformed. This time, he wants to strike first to get the reward, level up quickly, and see if the system really works. Technician number 3 asks to enter the room, and our protagonist lets her in. The girl enters in inappropriate clothing, saying that Lindsay Luo is handsome, and complains that he hasn't taken off his clothes yet. She says they need to be quick because she has other clients, so our hero tells her to take a shower. Lin smells a faint scent of zombie on her, and knows that in the apocalypse game, people who are about to turn show signs. Suddenly, he takes his knife from his backpack and walks towards the bathroom door. When he enters, the woman tells him to stop with the tricks and says she can't stand waiting around anymore. As soon as she turns off the shower, the protagonist's phone vibrates. At that very moment, black veins appear on the woman's body, indicating that the virus is manifesting. A thick red substance oozes from her body as more pronounced veins appear all over her skin. She screams and starts to groan in pain as Lindsay Luo enters the bathroom, armed with his knife. In a matter of moments, she has completely transformed into a monster and lunges at the survivor, who strikes her without wasting any time. He knocks her to the ground with ease, defeating her quickly and easily. Immediately after, the apocalypse game system informs him that the game has begun, and can no longer be stopped. The system also informs him that the game's zombies have sharp hearing but poor eyesight, and they only notice moving objects. The cruel apocalypse has arrived, and the unlucky ones have already turned into zombies, while 20% of the population was lucky enough to survive. The system asks him to enjoy the thrilling experience, and warns that if he is eliminated, he will not get a second chance. To enhance the gaming experience, the system presents the rules, explaining that defeating zombies or transformed animals increases his level, and grants new physical attributes. The system explains that the game experience is tied to his level, and is also rewarded with item drops which depend on the player's luck. The equipment ranges from the lowest level to mythological, but the system refuses to talk about the higher tiers, saying that Lindsay Luo doesn't need to know about things he will never reach. In addition, various opportunities have been hidden around the world, and he must make sure to look for them carefully. It was also revealed that modern weapons, vehicles, and human communication devices have completely lost their function. The survival rules are clear. If he is hit by zombies, he will be transformed, and the only way to avoid zombification is through the blood of monsters. When night comes, the zombies' attributes increase and they evolve over time, so Lin must hide. The system informs him that once the protagonist survives the 7 days of newbie protection, It will tell him about the other types of zombies. For now, the tip is to defeat as many zombies as possible, as they are still weak. The system warns him not to blame it later for not having warned him, reminding him that the game has many possibilities. Wishing him a good game, the system asks him to enter his name. The protagonist writes Yazi, deciding that from that day on he would be called that, ready to begin his revenge against the family for whom he holds a great grudge. Immediately after, he receives 1 experience point for defeating a zombie, and levels up to level 2, becoming the first player to do so. As a reward, he receives the most unique skill in the world, the first kill ability, and gets a server-wide announcement, something he never managed in his past life. Even as the god of war, all over the world the announcement informs that the player Nazi was the first to defeat a zombie, and has obtained a unique skill. Elsewhere, a nerdy girl named Ji Yao is in shock that someone has already defeated a zombie so quickly. At the same time, Gu Gaojie, the second player to defeat a zombie, finds it interesting that someone was faster than him. Meanwhile, the protagonist looks at his attribute window, observing his strength, spirit, constitution, and agility. He notes that his spirit and agility are high, and believes this is due to his 10 years of experience in the apocalypse in his previous life. He knows that having a good reputation is useful, as it grants good rewards, discounts in shops, and access to special items. For the moment, he prefers to forget the 4 free attribute points he received, and focuses more on the damage increase he gained. Suddenly, he notices a meditation necklace near the body of the female zombie he defeated. Upon inspecting the item, he notes that it is of the bronze category and increases the spirit attribute by 1 point when equipped. With this, the protagonist realizes he has a 100% item drop chance, since he received a bronze item on his very first kill. He mentally asks the system to make reasonable and sensible use of his golden finger, that is, his advantage. Realizing that the system really works as he expected, Yazi decides he will defeat zombies during the night to take advantage of the fact that they are still weak. His initial plan is to start by clearing the other rooms in the hotel to receive more rewards. As he moves through the place, he hears a strange noise that catches his attention and makes him walk silently to the door of one of the rooms. Upon reaching the location, he begins to turn the doorknob very slowly, but then kicks the door, flinging it wide open. Inside the room, he comes face to face with a muscular zombie. Yazi knows that after transformation, humans retain the traits they had in life, and that one seemed to have been a strong worker. He notices that the zombie's stats are lower than a normal zombie's, so he doesn't worry much. However, to his surprise, the zombie leaps and attacks him with all its might. He ducks and dodges with ease. Then, he attacks with his knife and seems to have defeated the creature, but surprising him again, the zombie manages to land a punch. Even so, the protagonist presses the knife harder, and finally manages to finish off the monster. For the victory, he receives 1 experience point and a gold coin. Linzalo doesn't think his performance was that bad, but he wanted to have defeated the zombie with a single blow. Soon after, he approaches to pick up the item that had dropped on the floor. He receives a food card representing a very delicious sirloin steak. These cards function as supplies and are very precious, because when the system shop opens, this item will cost 100 gold coins, making it excellent for the early game. He then opens his backpack and stores the steak card. Meanwhile, he searches through the defeated zombie's belongings and finds a photo of the man with his young daughter, along with a hammer, realizing the creature was once a repairman. Using the hammer he just found, he goes to the doors of other rooms and starts breaking the doorknobs. He even jokes around, pretending to be the police as he kicks the door in. To his surprise, the strategy works, and he barges into the room, only to find a zombie couple in an inappropriate act. He quickly retreats, remembering that this place is a love hotel, and realizes that even after being transformed, the zombies retain certain habits. The male zombie charges at him, trying to attack him for ruining their fun. The protagonist manages to dodge the blow, and notices that this zombie's stats are 2 points lower than the muscular monsters from before. He finds the creature very bold for fighting so arrogantly despite being weak. Then, Lindsay Luo lands several blows with his hammer and defeats the monster. Noticing the female zombie coming from behind, he grabs his knife and manages to defeat her with his back turned, without even needing to dodge. Upon defeating the 2 zombies, he receives 2 experience points and a few coins, in addition to picking up the 2 items that dropped on the floor. The protagonist receives a double blessing, and realizes that his special system, the Golden Finger, really works. He remembers that in his past life, he would kill dozens of zombies in exchange for mere bottles of water, noting the huge difference between being unlucky and lucky. Now, he loves being blessed. The items he picked up are sentry eyes, which detect movement and approaching people within a 10-meter radius. Seeing that each one lasts for 10 hours, Lindsay Lowe activates one of them immediately. Shortly after, he hears someone making a lot of noise upstairs and gets irritated. Suddenly, the hotel manager appears furious, cursing at the protagonist and complaining about his audacity and destroying everything and making so much noise. The man tries to throw a punch at Lin, who easily dodges and grabs his knife. Seeing the boy dodge makes the manager even angrier. The protagonist then says that if the manager weren't such a nuisance, he would have let him get bitten and only eliminated him after an hour. However, he states that he doesn't want to waste his time on trash and would rather defeat a dozen zombies. Thus, coldly and brutally, Lindsay Lowe eliminates the man without a second thought. He reflects that to survive in the apocalypse, the one with the strongest hand possesses all the power, and concludes that the hotel owner's fists just weren't tough enough. After that, the protagonist starts knocking on the next room's door, saying he's there to unclog the drain. He continues going from room to room, making up other excuses, like saying he's there to make the bed, or that room service has arrived. However, at one of the rooms no one opens the door, which makes him think there's another monster inside. Without hesitating, he kicks the door hard and breaks in. The moment he enters with his knife in hand, he notices a large monster with blisters on its back. Despite its size, the creature moves very quickly, forcing the protagonist to dodge immediately. Taking advantage of the dodge, Lindsay Lowe places his hands on the floor and kicks the monster. While the creature is stunned, he takes the chance to strike it with his knife, defeating it with ease once again. As soon as he wins the fight, he goes to pick up the item the monster dropped, finding a bottle of liquor. After that, he starts searching other rooms and picks up all sorts of items he finds along the way. Finishing his search, he decides it was good progress and that he will rest there for the night. Taking off his clothes, the player Yazi prepares to sleep in the motel, but receives a system notification informing him that he needs 6 more experience points to reach level 3. However, as soon as he lies down on the bed, he is shocked to notice it's already almost 8 in the morning. With little time left, he rushes to defeat 6 more zombies in the next 20 minutes to reach his goal. At the reception, he sees a message saying that technician number 3 is ready for service. He remembers there were 3 of these women, and since he only defeated 2, he knows there's still 1 left to find. Yazi grabs his hammer, knowing that according to the game's rules, zombies are attracted to noise. Therefore, he starts hitting the hammer against a wooden wall to attract the remaining creature's attention. He then goes to an empty room at the reception but finds nothing. Suddenly, he hears a noise coming from a small trap door on the floor. Upon opening the door, he realizes the monster was well hidden underground, and soon sees 2 zombies coming up the stairs, which disgusts him. To defeat them easily, Yazi simply knocks the monsters off the stairs. Right after, he jumps down, landing on top of the undead creatures. When he lands on the female zombie, the male zombie tries to attack him from behind. However, the protagonist has good reflexes and manages to land a blow with his knife before being hit. He defeats both monsters easily and receives 2 experience points, now needing 4 more to reach level 3. He notices his dagger is too dull to be used anymore and hopes to get a better weapon in the next item drop. To his surprise, he notices a brightly shining item that dropped from the 2 monsters. At that moment, he receives a very strong sword and thinks his mouth must be blessed for having wished for a better weapon. He also receives soft bread, which he decides to add to his meat meal later. The sword is bronze tier, 70 centimeters long, good for breaking enemy defenses, and it also increases his strength. The protagonist remembers that these starting weapons can usually only be bought later, so getting one at this stage is a huge advantage. He stores everything in his inventory, along with the other items he has already acquired. After organizing his belongings, Yazi notices there are only 10 minutes left before things get more complicated. He leaves the zombie bodies behind, goes up the stairs and finally exits the Love Hotel. Finding a small horde of zombies on the street, he expects the zombies to come at him angrily, and soon 4 of them charge in his direction, storming the place. However, the zombies simply fall to the ground, and he realizes he overestimated their intelligence on the first day. He recalls that in his past life, he spent the first day in his dormitory wasting time, while some zombies had already reached level 2. As the zombies approach, he uses his new sword to defeat them all at once, receiving 4 experience points and 4 gold coins. With the experience gained, he reaches level 3 and receives a free attribute point. Now he will need 30 points for the next level, and already feels a bit tired. However, his break is interrupted when he notices another zombie approaching, one that seems more intelligent and capable of running on its own. Even so, Yazi defeats it with extreme ease and, upon picking up the reward box, is shocked to see that a skill book has appeared so early in his second life. Finally, after so many battles, The clock strikes 8 in the morning, and an alarm starts to go off. At that exact moment, the protagonist notices someone approaching, and is attacked very quickly, but he manages to dodge in time. The enemy is a zombie with 10 points in spirit, 15 in strength and agility, and 16 in constitution. Yazi knows that at night, the zombie's attributes increase, making the fight more difficult. To make matters worse, the creature's power will reach its peak within a minute, which worries him, as he needs to defeat it before it gets even stronger. The hero advances with his sword and tries to land a slash on the zombie's neck, but the blade gets stuck and fails to pierce its skin. With trembling hands, he watches the zombie stand still, not reacting, keeping the sword trapped. Realizing the danger, Yazi jumps back, takes a hammer from his inventory, and hurls it at the creature, shouting for it to be eliminated. The hammer hits the monster's face, giving Yazi the chance to finally free his sword. The hammer's impact, however, makes the monster even angrier, and it starts running toward Yazi. The protagonist flees to avoid being caught by the powerful creature, continuing to dodge until he finds an opportunity to attack again. He attempts another slash, which is successful this time and knocks the zombie to the ground. Soon after, the hero defeats several other zombies and notices that all their attributes are at their peak. He reflects that without the experience from his past life, and without acting at the right moment, he wouldn't have been able to win. Next, he starts collecting the item boxes dropped by the enemies. It is already 8 o'clock, and the zombies' attributes have increased by at least 50%. The recent fight was noisy, and Yazi knows he needs to be discreet to avoid attracting more of the undead. Therefore, he carries the bodies and stacks them. Using a special item, the Eye, he can tell when zombies are approaching, as he will receive an alert. As a precaution, he plants the item in the ground to act as an alarm, warning him if any zombies enter the area. After a while, the protagonist takes a shower to relax, and starts opening the other item boxes. He receives a ring of the night, a bottle of water, and 2 more escort eyes, and wonders why items that were so valuable in his past life are appearing so easily now. He examines the bronze ring, which helps him camouflage himself at night, grants 1 more point of agility, and reduces his presence. Next, he picks up the skill book to learn something new, and obtains his first skill in the Apocalypse game, realizing there is no limit to how many he can learn. This is surprising, as the chance of getting such a book is very low. He remembers that an ordinary person only had the chance to obtain a random skill upon reaching level 10 and level 80. In his past life, unlucky people could get a maximum of 3 skills in total, which were often not even useful to them, and even level 60 or 70 players still relied only on their basic class skills. He remembered a player known as the King of Skills, who had 25 in total, and realized that the 10 skills he had in his past life already placed him above 99% of the world's players. With this in mind, he began to pray to all the gods, asking them to bless him with a useful skill he could use often in this new life. As soon as he finished opening the book, he received the returning spinning slash skill. It was a skill that allowed him to throw his sword, significantly increasing its damage and causing the weapon to return to him right after. Yazo was happy, as this was a rare warrior class skill that combined the range of a throw with an automatic return and the ability to deal multiple instances of damage. Although it had a long cooldown, he knew he could reduce it as his spirit increased. Feeling very lucky, he clicked the button several times, excited to learn the new technique. Right after learning the skill, Yazo decided to test it out to see how good it was, but his stomach started to rumble with hunger. So he opened his inventory and took out several food items for dinner, turning them into a banquet that looked like it was made by a chef. After he finished eating, he gathered everything and threw it in the trash. He knew that to get his revenge, he couldn't follow the same path as in his past life, where he would end up repeating the same mistakes. So, he took out a piece of paper and a pen and began to jot down some important information. He listed the warrior's attributes, like strength and constitution, which are fixed, and others that could increase over time. He also noted that mages gain a fixed point of spirit and agility with each level, in addition to 2 points to distribute freely. He reflected that only 1% of players have hidden classes, but since he had one in his past life, he believed it would be easy to acquire another one in this new life. Hidden classes are advanced, high level, and very different from normal ones, intended only for the best players. Their quests are extremely dangerous, but the rewards are immeasurable. He remembered his old class, the Phantom, which was a high-level assassin with great agility and extremely high single-target damage. It was thanks to this class that he managed to evade the Lee family's pursuit for 10 years. People who obtain these classes become future gods of war or divine magical figures who will be very useful. On his notepad, he also listed other important classes, like the Paladin, the Undead Titan, and the Reaper. After organizing his thoughts, he began to increase his strength attributes in the inventory, and to think about where he could find a Paladin of Light. Yasuo also needed to remember the location of that diamond-class sword he had noted down earlier. Meanwhile, the master of the Li family was furious, destroying everything around him because his plan had been ruined by Yao Jinghao. He wondered where the young man had gone, because thanks to him, the materials weren't ready and couldn't be sent to Lin in time. His butler asked him to calm down, reminding him that they had already lost many guards and would soon be unable to protect the Li family. Interrupting the conversation, the family's young master ordered them to send Lin Ziluo to meet his father in hell. The butler wondered if the young master's upbringing had been a good one, but on the other hand, he considered that he wasn't entirely wrong. After all, the Li family avoided sibling rivalry by having only one heir. However, with the arrival of the apocalypse, the young master's personality could make him suffer. At that moment, Haobo mentioned the group of mercenary hunters his father said was coming to meet him. Imagining they had already arrived in Shanghai, he ordered them to be sent to find Yao Jinghao and Lin Ziluo, demanding they bring Yao back dead or alive and make Lin Ziluo go completely insane. The butler explains that they are a sworn death squad, raised for the young master since his childhood, and that they will carry out all his wishes. Hearing this, the uncle's young master begins to laugh, imagining the havoc he will bring to their lives. Far away, the protagonist starts sneezing a lot and wonders who could be cursing him like that. Soon after, he grabs his backpack and jumps out the window. Upon reaching the street, he comes across several zombies wandering around. Without hesitation, he draws the sword from the sheath on his back and throws it at the creatures. The system congratulates him for defeating a zombie, granting him one more experience point and a gold coin. He keeps receiving several similar messages as he defeats a dozen zombies, until he finally reaches level 4. With this, he gains another attribute point and discovers that he now needs 40 points for the next level. He realizes that because of his throwable returning sword ability, it's very easy to defeat the zombies. After defeating another creature, he concludes that the spinning sword is indeed very useful. The only downside is that his spirit is still too weak, which makes the skill's cooldown time very long. Then, he finds clean clothes, a meal, and a very precise watch, deciding that's enough for today. The system congratulates him for finding a brand new attribute item, and he also picks up a special item, an enhancement scroll, happy to have found something so useful. This item grants an increase in the protagonist's attributes, with the first enchantment being a guaranteed success, but the chances decrease as the level increases. He then performs the successful enchantment and obtains the Tang Heng Dao. The sword, which was from the Tang dynasty, after being enchanted, has its durability increased and its vulnerability decreased. Additionally, its strength attributes increase by 2. And it now penetrates 15% of the enemy's defense with this effect stacking. The protagonist takes the opportunity and goes to the skill tree to increase his strength again. Then he stores his items in his backpack and obtains a new piece of equipment, the hidden mask. By wearing the mask, he can hide his name, level, and other basic information for 30 minutes, and can use the ability twice a day. Yazi wastes no time and puts on the mask to become hidden. After all that, he decides to rest for a bit before moving on, as he has already done too much. He thinks that if he reaches level 5 during the same day, he will be able to do that challenge without having to look for a dungeon. After all, dungeons are very important for gaining experience, food, equipment, and items in the Apocalypse game. Players just need to find one of the many portals that lead to them, which are scattered throughout the city. There are also some special single-player dungeons, which are hidden and offer much more generous rewards. However, he decides to forget about that for now, and go straight to the Li family mansion. At that moment, he takes his extremely precise watch from his backpack, and equips it on his wrist. Thus, he leaves behind the trail of zombies he eliminated, and sets off on his mission. In the middle of the street, he finds a shop with a heavily reinforced padlock, and breaks it with his sword. Upon entering and searching the place, he finds a trail of ketchup coming from a door. The moment he opens the door, he is startled to see a zombie attacking him at high speed. However, with his sharp reflexes, the protagonist manages to strike and sever the monster's hand. With extreme ease, he injures the hidden zombie badly, but soon notices the hands of other zombies breaking through the adjacent wall. Without hesitation, he throws his body forward and destroys the entire wall. Quickly, the protagonist manages to strike with his sword and eliminate the zombie, allowing him to explore the rest of the house in peace. He finds a picture frame of a happy family, likely victims of the apocalypse. Although he feels a pang of sadness, he remembers that most of the population has turned into zombies and he can't let himself be shaken by everyone. Soon after, noticing the large amount of available food, he decides to grab whatever he can find to eat. He then sets up a true feast in that family's house and begins to eat. Satisfied, he throws himself onto the sofa to check his phone and look at the map. He sees his current location and calculates that if he heads east during the afternoon, he will be able to reach his destination. He plans to defeat zombies along the way promising himself that he will reach level 5 on that road. Without wasting any more time, he gets up and prepares to leave. He was so focused on filling his stomach that he had completely forgotten about the 3 children who lived there. Outside, the 3 youngsters, who were from the family of the zombie he had defeated, were trying to get into the house. One of them commented that there must be someone inside, as he smelled food, and deduced that the man possessed cards capable of conjuring food. The girl with glasses thought it was a terrible idea to try to rob him, but the blonde boy saw no problem, and planned to threaten him to get the cards as soon as he came out. What they didn't know was that the protagonist had already left through the back door and was hiding in a bush behind them, thinking he would have to eliminate those 3 little rats. Meanwhile, the girl, still sad that her father had turned into a zombie, and that she had fled home with her brother without taking anything, finally agrees to the plan, as she hadn't eaten since that day, and needed to survive. The exact moment she decides to rob him, something that looks like ketchup splatters on her glasses, and the blonde boy takes a fatal blow from behind. The girl is completely terrified to see him fall to the ground, already dead. The protagonist reveals his position, explaining that he had planned to save his spirit power, but couldn't risk their screams attracting more zombies. Therefore, he throws his returning sword, which eliminates the girl and the other brother in a single move, before coming back to his hand. With cold blood and no remorse, he defeats the 3 of them. He justifies the act to himself, thinking that someone who abandons their own sister is just a waste of resources. He believes they should thank him for a quick, torture-free death, as he saved them from the suffering of the apocalypse. He even thinks that he did a good deed, and that the government should give him a Good Citizen award. Then, he leaves, leaving behind another trail of tragedy for a family that was just trying to survive. Arriving on the streets, he finds a crowd of zombies trying to scale a building. Inside the building, a woman watches the zombies climbing the walls, impressed, while another person tries to block the doors. Looking down, they see a man with a mask and a sword annihilating all the monsters, but they notice that his name and level are hidden. The woman suggests calling the masked man to save them, but her companion thinks it's a bad idea, arguing that it would reveal their position and attract more zombies. He also points out that because the man is hiding his information, he is probably not willing to help anyone. Ignoring the warning, the woman changes her appearance to that of a beautiful young woman with purple hair, and calls out to him, trying to seduce him into saving her. Upon hearing the call, the protagonist turns around and takes out a tube of toothpaste from his inventory. The girl, irritated, says that even though he has eyes, he doesn't realize she's a famous internet personality with many followers. She boasts that people send her sports cars every day, and yet he is ignoring her. In a fit of rage, she grabs a flower pot and throws it at Yazi, who simply turns his body slightly to the side and dodges the object. Unfazed, she continues to ask to be saved, insisting that there are many zombies nearby and that she is very scared. She even suggests that if he saves her, she can help him with something indecent, believing he is just playing hard to get. In response, Yazi takes a piece of raw meat infected with the zombie virus, an item that makes the monsters relentlessly pursue the bait, and throws it into the woman's apartment. She becomes furious, screaming that she doesn't want food, but for him to take her to a safe place. However, right behind her, a door opens and a dozen zombies invade the place. The monsters start destroying everything and quickly eliminate the girl to get the piece of meat he threw. After her death, Yazi reflects that this is the first lesson of the apocalypse. Trust no one. The most important lesson is to know yourself and not carelessly ask strangers for help. After this event, several zombies start chasing our protagonist down the street. He finally arrives at the Modu Center Stadium, knowing that this is the right place. There are still 2 hours until nightfall, which gives him plenty of time. He believes there must be a silver scale item there because, according to the rules of the apocalypse game, famous city buildings can host special situations like dungeons. In these areas, wild chests can appear that anyone can open, but they are always protected by a boss. The item only appears after the Guardian is defeated, and a silver chest guarantees an item of the same scale. As soon as he enters the stadium, the system notifies him of a mission called 1 against 100. The objective is for the player to prove their strength by defeating 100 zombies of any level, with the reward being a random piece of bronze equipment from the Golden Finger system. Seeing that most of the zombies are probably level 2, he wonders whether or not to accept. The stadium is very large, and his original plan was just to hide among the zombies, grab the chest, and leave. Now, with the appearance of this mission, he fears there might be penalties if he refuses or fails. The system then asks him to be sure of his decision, explaining that the Golden Finger exists to provide a better gaming experience. To his relief, the system informs him that there are no penalties for refusing or failing the mission. In fact, he would even receive a consolation prize of 100 gold coins. Yazi is happy to realize he has nothing to lose, whether he wins or fails. Based on his memory, he knows the silver chest should be in the 3rd floor storage room. With a plan in mind, he decides to go through the side door and fight his way to the emergency stairs on the first floor. From there, he will fight his way to the infirmary on the second floor, planning to arrive around 8 o'clock as night begins to fall. He intends to sleep in the infirmary beds for the rest of the night to continue the fight the next day, hoping to reach the third floor by noon. After opening the chest, he will jump from the building's edge to ensure a quick escape. Following his plan, he breaks the lock to enter the basketball court. Inside, he sees a zombified athlete and remarks that it's a good start. He charges at the zombie, cutting it down easily with his sword. Next, he takes out his hammer, marked with a rabbit sign, and smashes the monster's face with all his might. The zombie drops its basketball and is defeated. Yazi then thinks that the athlete probably didn't expect to turn into a zombie in the middle of a game. Seeing the defeated zombie on the ground, Yazi notices it dropped an item that catches his eye. Upon picking it up, he receives a key and a flash grenade. The bronze-grade grenade is a unique item that emits a powerful light, blinding anyone who looks at it. Yazi finds this very useful, as he plans to go to his family's mansion the following night. After putting the grenade in his backpack, he examines the Modem Stadium master key, thinking that with it, he can avoid the noise of breaking down doors, which would attract more zombies. Arriving at the next door, he uses the master key and manages to open it without making a sound. Inside, however, he comes face to face with several zombified table tennis athletes. Yazi crouches down to count them and realizes there are 17 in total. He notes that these zombies have attributes similar to his own, and that a normal person would have a very hard time facing them. However, with his approach, he believes it will be easy to fight all 17 of them. The hall door is closed, but he knows that if he makes too much noise, the zombies outside will get in. Therefore, his plan is to defeat 2 zombies first to reach level 5, and then use a strategy to deal with the remaining 15. He approaches one of the zombies from behind and eliminates it instantly with a strike from his sword. However, the other monsters notice their companion fall and turn around in a rage, charging at Yazi. Already prepared, he manages to defeat 2 zombies at once with a single slash. Next, he takes a few steps back and jumps, using the momentum from his descent to land another blow with his sword, defeating 2 more and earning 2 points and 3 gold coins. With that, he finally reaches level 5 and gains another attribute point, now needing 100 experience points for level 6. Yazi increases his constitution and climbs onto a table to get a better view of the scene, promptly kicking a zombie in the head that was trying to bite him. Meanwhile, a person hidden inside a locker watches the whole scene, terrified. He gets very scared when a zombie falls near his hiding spot. Soon after, other monsters are thrown against the locker door, leaving marks. Seeing the silhouettes, he believes they are defeated zombies, and concludes that the player fighting outside must have many resources. He then realizes he can take the monster's remains and turn them into resources for himself. His plan becomes to lure more zombies to the location, so that the player will defeat them all and he can take advantage of the situation. Yazi was already tired, and his body trembled from the effort of the fight. He realized that the zombies' roars were attracting the attention of other creatures outside, who were now trying to break down the gym door to get in. Yazi decided to stay quiet, but he didn't know how long the door would hold. He planned to make a strategic retreat as soon as he defeated the remaining zombies. Just then, 4 more zombies leaped on him, trying to devour him. Yazi spun in the air, knocking 3 of them down and preventing them from biting him. He landed on his feet, already preparing to face the dozen zombies still approaching. With a single attack, he pierced 3 of them at once, eliminating them with ease. After defeating all the zombies that were there, he became extremely tired and sat on the floor. As a reward, he received a stamina potion that, when drunk, immediately recovered 20% of his energy and restored another 5% per minute. The potion had a 30-minute cooldown, but the protagonist drank it without a second thought. Next, he threw his sword over the ping-pong table to defeat other zombies and began to pick up the items dropped by the monsters. He got a spiked bracelet, a magically enchanted item, whose ability summons a row of spikes from the ground to knock down enemies. As soon as he put the bracelet on his wrist, more zombies broke down the door all at once. Seeing the moment was perfect, the protagonist waited for all of them to get closer, did a backflip and slapped the bracelet. Instantly, the ability summoned a row of giant spikes from the ground, which pierced and defeated all the zombies at once. Yazi was surprised by the ability's power. After all, only a level 20 mage could do something of that level. Just then, a surviving zombie tried to jump Yazi from behind, but a giant spike hit it. Realizing that several zombies had been eliminated at once due to this ability, the system notified him several times that he had gained a lot of experience points. The system also informed him that, after being used, the spike ability would have a 24-hour cooldown. It was explained that when an item-linked ability is used for the first time, the system injects energy and maximizes its power. In the future, the ability would have to be powered by the player's own spirit force. Our hero then bent down and started picking up the items dropped by the defeated monsters. He got a grenade launcher, a single-use item with a 30-meter radius, as well as a pair of boots that summons a storm and reduces the sound of his footsteps. The survivor equipped his new pair of special boots, and was congratulated by the system for it, watching his attributes increase. The system noted that, unless there is a class change, it is impossible for a normal person to have stats like these at level 10. Furthermore, after his class changes, his stats will be double those of a normal person at the same level. As he left the room, he realized there was still a crowd of zombies to defeat. He took the raw meat infected with the zombie virus, placed it in his short-range weapon, and fired a shot, launching the meat far away to lure the zombies from the area. While all the monsters ran off, our protagonist had time to use his boots, which greatly increased his speed and suppressed the sound of his footsteps, allowing him to pass by unheard. He realized it was almost 8 o'clock, and that the zombies' stats would greatly increase due to nightfall. Facing the zombies now would be a waste of effort, so he thought it best to find a place to rest. Arriving at the infirmary, he closed the door very cautiously to avoid making noise and tried to use his master key to lock it. However, he noticed something was wrong, as the door wouldn't lock. He reasoned that the apocalypse had hit the world at 7 o'clock, and although the stadium hadn't closed, the infirmary usually closed before then. Therefore, the door should have already been locked after the apocalypse game began. Realizing this, he used his master key on the infirmary door to unlock it, hoping the person inside wouldn't cause him any trouble. Yazi began to enter the room cautiously, trying not to make a sound. However, the person inside noticed his presence, and asked who he was and how he had gotten the key to the infirmary. Immediately, the person pressed a knife against Yazi's neck and threatened him. The hero warns that, despite the threat, the man had messed with the wrong person, and manages to disarm him. As soon as the knife falls to the floor, he grabs the survivor's arm and throws him backward, injuring him in the process. After immobilizing him, the protagonist places a cloth over his mouth to muffle his screams. This item, a kind of blanket from his inventory, is then used to cover all the cracks in the room. He orders the man to turn on the light, but the survivor argues that it would attract zombies. The protagonist replies that he has already covered all the places where light could pass through, thus avoiding the danger. The man then turns on the lights, revealing the presence of other survivors in the room. They are shocked to see that the protagonist survived the attack, as they were waiting for him to be eliminated so they could steal his items. Yazi comments that he has seen that kind of arrogant look many times, and teaches the survivor that, in the apocalypse, one should never look at others with hatred, because those who do end up being eliminated. Then, Yazi pulls his knife from his pocket and immediately attacks the man, killing him. The action leaves all the other survivors in shock. The protagonist knows he did the right thing by eliminating him first, as the man was prepared and could have caused future problems. He then turns to the others and says he's a good person, telling them not to get the wrong impression of him. They retort, saying that if he's a good person then they must be angels, since he just killed a man. Yazi justifies himself, explaining that the enemy provoked him first, and that he had no choice but to retaliate, as he is a reasonable person, not a bad one. A woman in a lab coat approaches and states that the man deserved what happened, and the rest of the group agrees with her. Although still a bit shocked, the other members of the group back up her claim. The protagonist is satisfied and reflects that if he'd been at his full strength, the battle in the ping-pong room would have ended much faster. He then tells the group to clean up the body and the blood from the floor. Afraid of him, they all obey and remove the body, wrapping it in a blanket. While watching, the protagonist notices the doctor and has a feeling he's seen her somewhere before. Her name is Zhang Yexue. She is at level 0 and has no title. Suddenly the hero remembers her. He met her in his past life, during the final stages of the apocalypse, when she possessed the divine doctor class. In that life, knowing she belonged to a divine and hidden class, he asked her to heal a wound on his face. She explained that the scar was connected to his soul, and therefore, was impossible to heal. Later, he was severely injured other times, and sought her out again for treatment. However, the divine doctor class was highly respected and safe in the final stages of the apocalypse. Despite this, they were seen only as a tool, without enough strength to defend themselves, and could be eliminated at any time by others. He remembers that time, and how everyone was devastated, noticing how different she is now. He thinks about how strange fate is, as he has already found someone familiar on the second day of the apocalypse. And in this life, she is a nurse, a doctor, and also a mechanic. Suddenly, the group of survivors is startled when the door begins to crack. Everyone starts to tremble with fear, while the protagonist looks at his watch and sees that it's 8:30. He quickly pulls some cards from his inventory, and begins to eat voraciously and very quickly. The civilians look at Yazi with envy, their stomachs rumbling with hunger. Seeing the situation, the doctor asks where he got the food and if there's any chance they could get some. At that moment, Yazi smiles, realizing they've fallen into his trap, and says that to get food, they first need to do him a favor. While the girl wonders what he could want, Yazi explains that there's a list of medicines he needs and that she, being a nurse, must find and get them all for him. The nurse asks if that's all he needs, and our hero confirms, which he finds strange. Taking the list, she prepares to start the search. Yazi warns that the four of them need to work hard through the night, as he will be leaving at 6 in the morning. Before going to sleep, he gives them some food through the cards and says that if they do a good job, they can get more when he wakes up. Then, he sets up the escort eye to watch over the place and opens his inventory, noticing that he is 22 points away from reaching level 6 and checking the status of the 1 against hundreds mission. After resting, the protagonist gets up and goes to the infusion room, where he finds the civilians completely exhausted from working all night. He congratulates them on their good work and says that each of the cards he will give them is enough to last them for a day. The nurse is surprised, as she thought he would eliminate all of them and steal their things, and had even planned an escape. She didn't expect him to keep his promise, and begins to think that he isn't as cruel as she imagined. Yazi takes the box of medicine he had requested. When the girl asks how to use the cards, the protagonist is shocked, as he had forgotten that the game doesn't have a tutorial. He remembers that in his past life, it took him days to learn how to open the inventory, so he decides to do this favor for Zhong Yexue. He asks her to pay attention to his movements and teaches the nurse how to use the cards, showing how the food magically appears on the table after a click. The nurse thanks him, and soon after, all the civilians begin to use their cards to eat. Yazi wants to give special attention to the girl, as she helped him a lot in his past life, so he tells everyone to leave the place immediately, around noon. Looking through the curtain, he assumes he has already cleared all the zombies from the stadium. However, John gets scared and warns him that there are still zombies nearby. Our hero says she should only worry about herself and leaves. As soon as he leaves, he is confronted by a giant horde of zombies. Without hesitating, he draws his sword and runs towards them, taking down the first one and getting a fishing rod as a reward. He is careful and catches the zombie's body before it hits the ground, avoiding any noise that might alert the others. After that, Yazi continues to wipe out the horde of monsters using precise and swift strikes with his sword. He finally reaches the other side of the stadium, where he opens a door and is surprised to see zombies without pants. He soon realizes that he has actually entered a bathroom, which explains the situation. One of the zombies, upon seeing the protagonist invading its privacy, jumps at him in a rage, trying to bite him. However, the monster ends up falling because of its lowered pants, which makes Yazi not take the fight seriously. Instead of fighting normally, he does an acrobatic move, and the defeated zombie falls to the ground, allowing our hero to just plunge his sword into it to finish the job. Yazi then reflects that the survival rate of the people in the stadium must be low. Most of the people who came here were in good physical shape before turning into zombies, and their stats grew even more after the transformation. He notices that there are also zombies in the women's bathroom, and concludes that there must be no one left alive in the place. Even in the midst of the apocalypse, he feels embarrassed and hesitates to enter the women's bathroom. Finally, he closes his eyes, opens the door, and realizes the place is completely empty. However, he hears the sound of 1 or 2 zombies coming from one of the stalls. As soon as he opens the stall door, he comes across 2 zombies in the middle of an inappropriate act. The moment the zombies notice the living human, they get angry and attack. However, the 2 of them slip and fall to the ground together, and are eliminated by Yazi with a single sword strike. For defeating the level 2 zombies, he gains 4 experience points and 5 gold coins. Next, he starts searching the pocket of one of them, looking for something. As he expected, the zombies were indeed human, and apart from their brains, the rest remained similar, including the bad habits they had in life. Noticing the height of the 2 zombies, he comes to a conclusion. These 2 are an infamous zombie couple, well known in the Apocalypse game. In his other life, this couple was discovered in the stadium, and was known for being inseparable and having great synergy. In terms of strength, they were second only to the zombie emperor, and if they fought together, they could even hold off a war god or the emperor himself. Yazi didn't expect these 2 to be so unlucky as to be defeated by him on just the 3rd day of the apocalypse. After defeating them, he picks up the fusion stone that was dropped as a reward. The fusion stone is used to fuse 2 bronze tier items, creating a new, stronger piece of equipment. He hopes to get a good weapon so he can fuse it with his 10 Dao. At that moment, he turns around and notices someone is inside one of the other bathroom stalls. Nyazi draws his sword and becomes alert, but upon looking inside the stall, he finds a magic circle and an item box. Upon discovering the bronze chest, his reputation increases by 10 points. He then requests to open the special bronze dungeon chest, a process that takes 30 seconds. After waiting the required time, the chest opens and reveals an apple. Our protagonist hopes this fruit represents strength or agility. The divine fruit, in fact, permanently increases constitution by 2 points after being consumed. These fruits are rare for level 6, and for players of other levels, the increased stats are unknown. If 2 people from the same team consume the fruit, the stats can be split, giving 1 point to each. Our hero goes to the sink, cleans the fruit, and then bites into it. When he swallows, his eyes light up, as the fruit is delicious. A notification appears, confirming that Nyazi has eaten the fruit, and that his constitution has permanently increased by 2 points. After this, he takes a long, heavy carpet from his inventory, commenting that the stadium has surprised him in many ways, and that he is looking forward to the zombies he will encounter ahead. As soon as he reaches the street, he notices a crowd of zombies running very fast in his direction. Immediately, Nyazi throws the heavy carpet on the ground, causing the zombies to step on it without making a sound. Because of this, their footsteps are muffled, which prevents alerting other monsters in nearby places. With the noise contained, our hero begins to eliminate the monsters, receiving experience points and gold coins. The zombies are now level 2 and grant more experience, which helps him finally reach level 6. In addition, he obtains resource cards after defeating 2 more zombies, and also receives a super blinding light grenade. His strength increases to 19, and he notes that he has already eliminated 62 out of the 100 zombies required to complete his current mission. He also received a new item from the bronze grade, the strongest one yet, a pair of lion-patterned bracelets. These bracelets are imbued with the power of a lion, increasing the user's strength and constitution, as well as inflicting intimidation on the enemy. This effect decreases the target's body coordination, preventing them from being able to use their abilities. Realizing he can only equip one piece of equipment at a time on each body part, Nyazi decides to put on the bracelets, which increase his strength by 2 more points. Next, he slowly opens a door and finds several bodies of eliminated people. He reflects that common zombies have no abilities, they just bite humans to turn them into monsters as well, and only feed on brains when in a state of frenzy. Seeing the scene full of bodies on the floor, he imagines that a zombie boss is responsible. These bosses are stronger than zombies of the same level, and treat humans purely as food, even feeding on their own kind to satisfy their hunger when no more humans are around. He then considers a second type of monster, animal zombies. The probability of encountering them is low, and it happens more often in strong animals since creatures like mosquitoes do not survive zombification. Animal zombies are attracted to humans and feed on their brains, but they also hunt other zombies. Noticing several cuts on the bodies on the floor, he concludes that it is probably a zombie cat. Nyazi hates zombie cats, as they have keen hearing and senses, and they surely already know he's in the area. He wonders if the monster is planning an ambush or a direct attack. Using his own senses to find the zombie, he can't locate it to avoid the trap, until he feels a spark that indicates the monster's proximity. Suddenly, our protagonist is caught by surprise and attacked by the zombie cat, but he manages to dodge just in time to avoid a slash. In response, he immediately throws his sword at the creature. The zombie cat is a bronze category level 9, with 21 strength and sharp claws. Our protagonist realizes it's a prefixed zombie cat, which means it's an entity-level boss. Its special talent is its sharp claws, which tear the wound and reduce any healing process by 40%. Additionally, the cat's gaze can lure the enemy into a terrible illusion, and the resulting fear decreases the target's stats. Our hero understands he's facing a high-level boss, with strength and agility that surpass his own. He thinks that the ability to reduce healing and increase damage is exactly what's expected from a boss in the Apocalypse game. This means that if he gets injured once, that part of his body will be difficult to heal for the rest of the battle. Despite the danger, our protagonist smiles, ready to use all his battle experience to destroy the zombie cat. As soon as the monster starts coming at him, he gets ready. Immediately the system alerts him that he has encountered an extremely strong bronze-grade monster, and that the mission is to defeat it. The notification explains that it's a stray cat with a special talent that lived on the 3rd floor of the stadium, where people who liked animals used to bring it food. With the apocalypse, the cat was infected and transformed, starting a massacre in which its sharp claws slashed the same humans who had helped it before. The original mission required him to eliminate the cat, to earn 100 reputation points, 200 gold coins, 1 item, and 100 experience points, all within 8 hours. If he failed, the penalty would be the loss of 1 level and 1 point in all stats permanently. However, the Golden Finger system detects the mission and optimizes its parameters, maximizing the rewards to 300 reputation points, 500 gold coins, and a special item. Furthermore, the completion time is increased to 24 hours, and all penalties are removed. Our protagonist is in shock, as he realizes this is no longer the Apocalypse game he knew, nor the same system that had wronged him countless times in his past life. Back then, every mission was extremely difficult, and the penalties for failure or refusal were severe. For an ordinary person, with an item drop rate of only 1%, the rewards might have seemed decent, but facing a level 9 bronze boss in the early days would be impossible without a huge team. Even with dozens of people, the reward would be maybe 50 coins, which was practically nothing. Now, he's going to earn 500 gold coins, plus a lot of experience and reputation, turning what was once a trap into an excellent deal. Therefore, without a second thought, the player Yazi accepts the mission. The system then confirms that the player has accepted the mission of the traitorous zombie cat and must complete it within 24 hours. Meanwhile, the creature began to lick itself, acting just like a normal cat. Based on his experience, Yazi knows that if he loses his cool when facing a taunting boss, the fight becomes harder, so he intends to force the creature to make the first move. To annoy the cat, he kneels down, takes out his phone, and starts reading a manhwa, laughing out loud. The tactic works and the cat becomes extremely stressed, its fur standing on end. He then lunges at the protagonist with an extremely agile leap, even managing to say he will eliminate the human. The monster gets very close to slashing him with its sharp claws, but Yazi dodges at the last second and takes the opportunity to grab the sword from his back. Annoyed, the cat leaps again and tries another attack, but our protagonist dodges to the side once more and runs behind the enemy, sword in hand. As soon as Yazi tries to strike, the cat dodges and surprises him, saying he can predict his movements. However, in that same instant, the protagonist manages to cut the cat's claws, something he wasn't expecting. The creature becomes extremely irritated by the pain and says that this is unforgivable. Our hero just mocks him for losing his claws and challenges him to attack again. Furious, the cat starts to scream and finally uses its special ability, the terrifying daze. Yazi realizes he has been pulled into an illusion by the zombie animal's eye ability, seeing the cat in a monstrous form and surrounded by several lost souls. However, since he spent 10 years in the apocalypse, a mere illusion with a horde of zombies isn't enough to terrify him. He simply says the cat is not worthy and shatters the illusion with his willpower, sending the monster flying away. With the spell broken, the cat falls to the ground and starts running in desperation. Seeing his chance, our protagonist uses the whirlwind sword skill and throws his weapon toward the fleeing monster. Upon eliminating the cat, Yazi completes the mission and receives all his absurd rewards. Immediately after, it is announced to the entire server that he has not only defeated the bronze class boss, but has also reached level 7. The news generates diverse reactions among the other players. One of them gets annoyed, wondering who this person is and why so many announcements about him appear on the server. In contrast, a girl is happy for her great friend and asks when he will arrive at the location to marry the princess. A third player, however, doesn't want to be bothered by this type of announcement and simply thinks Yazi is an attention seeker. Meanwhile, in a high-rise building, a man drinks wine and reflects on the news. He knows that the name Yazi is involved in the mythology of the Dragon Kingdom, which leads him to believe the boy is someone important. He considers that if an expert like Yazi were willing to join his group, their strength would increase drastically. After the announcement of Yazi's victory ends, the protagonist realizes it has caused a great commotion, and that he will probably have to hide his face from now on. To rest a bit, he clicks on a chair in his inventory, which materializes in front of him. He reflects on the battle, remembering that the zombie cat's stats were higher than his, and that it took a lot of effort and mental power to defeat it. He recognizes that defeating a bronze-class boss alone, and without taking any damage, is a very advanced feat. Therefore, he understands that if he encounters a higher-tier boss next time, the situation would be a huge problem. The system congratulates him for receiving a server-wide announcement and gives him the rewards. He receives 3 attribute points, 1,000 gold coins, and 1,000 reputation points. Upon opening his game panel, he notices that he now has a total of 2,000 reputation points, 5,000 gold coins, and 4 available attribute points. In addition, he has also gained more space to store items in his inventory. He also obtained a unique title for being the first person to eliminate a bronze-class boss in the Apocalypse game. This title increases all his stats by 2 points, and against normal bosses or those below the bronze class, their attributes are decreased by 5%. The system informs him that player Yazi can choose to exchange his first kill title for the new Bronze Class Annihilator title. Our surviving hero decides to make the switch, and the new attributes he gains from it will take effect in 1 hour. With his current stats, he concludes that if the zombie cat were to revive now, he could defeat it again more easily. He then wonders how powerful his attributes might become when his class finally changes. 30 minutes pass, and the protagonist receives a special item from the zombie cat, a horn. By blowing the horn, he can summon the sharp-clawed zombie cat and control it for 30 minutes. Realizing it's a summoning type item, he knows he got very lucky, as he now has a permanent helper. He also analyzes the monster's remains. The cat's skin, its flesh, and its sharp claws can be used to craft coats, food, or weapons. Recognizing that the defeated zombie cat's body is a real treasure, he picks it up and places it in his inventory to use later. Finally, he arrives at the warehouse where he remembers the silver chest is hidden. Upon opening the door, he is faced with several mortal remains and notes that the cat had a rare and sinister taste. Anyone who saw that scene would be frightened, and the idea of a cat collecting eyes would shock the entire world. Thinking about the possibility that the zombie cat had hidden some treasure inside, he begins to search the area. First, he finds a cat toy wand with small weights tied to its ends. Aside from this creative wand, the rest seems to be pure junk, much to the protagonist's disappointment. Determined to continue his search, he finds a pile of white clothes and looks underneath them. As soon as he moves the clothes, he finally finds the special silver chest he was looking for. For discovering the chest, he receives another 20 reputation points. The system then asks if he wants to open the chest, warning that the process will take 60 seconds, and our protagonist immediately accepts. Finally, upon opening the chest, he receives a bonus that increases his inventory space. In addition, he gains 50 experience points, a new skill book, and a white cape with wings. He is impressed to see that the skill book is a silver class item. The chest also contained 2 explosive swords for the warrior class, which allow the user to land 2 attacks, and then generate an explosion. He thinks the skill is good, as it was exactly what he needed for his warrior playstyle, but he recognizes that it is difficult to use. A novice would have difficulty executing a 2-hit combo with critical damage, but he feels confident that he can do it. Immediately after, the system detects the explosive double slash skill, and asks if he wishes to learn it, to which the protagonist replies, yes. After learning the skill, he picks up the white cape with wings to examine it. The silver class item is a fabric made with feathers from various rare birds, which increases agility by 2 points. Because of a special spell on the cape, it also allows him to glide a little, enabling him to fly slowly and hover in the air after jumping or landing. Yazi is impressed with the cape and its abilities, so he equips it immediately. He realizes that he benefited greatly from the fight against the zombie cat. Originally, his only goal for the night was to get rid of Li Hao Bo, but that goal now seems small. He decides he wants to get rid of the entire Li family. With that in mind, there is only one task left to do: complete the 1 versus 100 mission from the Golden Finger system. To begin, he approaches a door and knocks on it, attracting the nearby zombies. Then he drops some feathers from his cape and decides to take the initiative in combat. He runs very fast toward the zombies that were attracted by the noise, drawing his sword and preparing a massive attack. While jumping and gliding with the help of the cape, he drives his sword into the monsters, eliminating them with ease. He takes down several of them while floating, using his sword masterfully. Floating above a zombie, he decides it's time to test the effects of his new explosive dual sword. He then unleashes a whirlwind strike with his new sword, and finds the skill incredible, as it hits the zombie, eliminates it instantly, and, in a matter of moments, causes an explosion. The protagonist uses the cape to protect himself, but the impact of the explosion is so great that it throws him backward. To avoid getting hurt, he quickly drives his sword into the ground and holds on. He realizes that the stats of the tall zombie he defeated were 30% higher than his own. The speed at which he swung the sword was the same as the whirlwind, but the effect was completely different. As soon as he finishes testing the skill, he decides to take the fight seriously. Upon defeating 2 zombies, he receives 2 experience points and 3 gold coins. After that, he continues to gain experience points and gold coins non-stop. Eventually, he manages to defeat 100 zombies in the Madu Stadium, completing his mission. As a reward, he obtains a random item from the Golden Finger system. The system asks Yazi if he wants to receive the bronze class reward now. The protagonist is surprised to have defeated dozens of zombies so quickly, and agrees to take the mission reward. He wonders if his luck has run out after getting so many good items today, since the reward was resource cards. Seeing that they are just cards, he decides he is in no hurry and can get them the next day. Afterward, he rereads the system message about getting a bronze class or golden finger item and decides to take the equipment first. saving his luck for the golden finger item. Yazi believed that saving the most important thing and leaving his luck for last usually yielded better results, so he proceeded to obtain the bronze category item. He received the vampiric ring, which transforms damage dealt into stamina for himself by draining it from the enemy. Yazi considered this attribute of draining damage and converting it into stamina to be very rare. Because it was such a good piece of equipment, he became afraid of getting a bad item from the golden finger. The system then explained that every normal gold finger item has a practical effect and is guaranteed to aid the player. Because of this, our hero decided to get the random item. The system started drawing the item and surprised Yazi by giving him auto loot, an ability that let him automatically pick up items dropped by the zombies he defeated. Now he could collect items and receive them automatically at the same time, which relieved him, as he had been worried that the high item drop rate might hinder him. Next, he asked the system if this ability was really level 1. The system confirmed, and said that if he received auto loot again, the ability would level up, increasing its range and unlocking additional effects. Additionally, the gold finger missions would be activated randomly based on Yazi's environment and life events. He realized he was lucky, and wondered what the other gold fingers did, and what kind he would get next time. Soon after, he received other items from the zombies like a portable charger, food, and another watchman's eye. From that moment on, only the items he obtained would be announced and sorted into categories in his inventory. When he opened his inventory, he was pleased to see that the sorting was detailed and well organized. However, he realized that the fight with the zombie cat and the gold finger draw had made him lose a lot of time. Looking at the time, he was shocked to see how much of it had flown by. With no time to eat, he decided to run to the Lee family mansion first, and jumped out the window. Meanwhile, at the Lee family mansion, a man in a suit was having a great time until the clock struck a specific hour and caught his attention. The young master, Li Haobo, became annoyed for some reason and slapped the woman beside him, wondering why his men hadn't returned, as they had been taking all morning to find 2 people. His butler explained that the group of mercenaries was at the zombie-filled college, which was causing the delay. Annoyed, Li Haobo complained that he had defeated a zombie but hadn't gained any experience from it. He thought that leveling up would compensate for his weak constitution, but even with personal guards to beat down the zombies so he could deliver the final blow, he gained very little experience. At that moment, a mysterious person arrived at the mansion. It was the young master's uncle Rong who had returned. Li Haobo immediately asked if he had found the girl and the damned orphan. His uncle replied that they had found the girl, but the man was missing. Li ordered her to be brought into the room, but his uncle revealed that she was dead and inside the suitcase he was carrying. The young master was shocked to hear this. Rong explained that by following the clues he had given them, they found a friend of Yao's and then found the girl herself in the school's storage room. At that moment, Uncle Rong opened the suitcase to show Jikon's body to young Master Li. He explained that, besides being dead, she had been found inside a barrel, and that men's clothes with ketchup stains were at the scene. Rong said she had been tortured before being killed, and had injuries in vital areas. He concluded that the criminal must be familiar with the kingdom's acupuncture, as the cuts were precise and tore through the muscle tissue, a torture method that not even a cold-blooded killer would use. Rong wondered what made him think the person behind this was an enemy of Yao, and a threat to Li Haobo. Indignant, the young master concluded that the scoundrel who did that to the university student could only be Lin Ziluo. Immediately after, he himself found that impossible, as the boy was an orphan who wouldn't have the strength for such an act. Besides, he hadn't sent the surprise video, and would have no way of knowing that Yao was cheating on him. Upon learning that the young man was Lin Jian's son, Uncle Rong considered that it could be him, perhaps with the help of an accomplice. To face such a powerful assassin, they would need more security than they had. Li Haobo questioned if his uncle wasn't enough. After all, he was one of the 10 masters of the kingdom, and also had the group of mercenaries. He then asked for more guards to be brought in, and his uncle agreed, telling the young master to sleep soundly. Rong stated that he didn't mind sacrificing himself to protect the family. Meanwhile, Yazi had defeated several level 3 zombies and earned many rewards, reaching level 8. He hadn't expected to achieve this before the 4th day, and was half a day ahead of schedule, which was great, because if he kept leveling up at this pace, he wouldn't be in danger. In front of the Li family mansion, he finally arrived to defeat Li Haobo and settle the score. Surrounding the location were dozens of soldiers armed to the teeth, but even while on patrol, they didn't notice the protagonist on top of a tree. He climbed down without a sound, and pressed a camouflaged button on the ground. His memory served him well, and he managed to find the secret mechanism which immediately began to open a passage. That was an escape route for Li Haobo, and Yazi's plan was to catch him precisely when he was feeling hopeful. He recognized the Li family's military tactic, which consisted of surrounding the location, but always leaving an escape route. Seeing that Li Haobo had an army by his side this time, Yazi wondered if he would be able to win. He then noticed that the army was the group of mercenaries, his enemies from a past life. Because of this, the protagonist understood how those men operated, although he hadn't carefully observed their formation in his previous life. Following that path, the infiltration seemed smooth, and he was already finding some gaps in the security. Suddenly, Yazi was startled to see the arrival of Rong Zhan. He was one of the gods of war, and the leader of the mercenaries before the apocalypse, a very strong man. Yazi remembered that after the game began, Rong Zhan started hunting him on Li Haobo's orders. After his subordinates failed several times, Rong acted on his own, forcing the protagonist into desperate situations and becoming his greatest enemy in the other life. However, Yazi had also greatly humiliated him, pretending to throw himself off a mountain to trick him and escaping from him multiple times. This caused Rong to lose his title as a great hunter and become a great humiliation himself. This was a true meeting of enemies who felt immense anger toward each other. Rong almost saw him, but Yazi acted quickly and hid behind a pillar. In this confrontation, he was certain he could kill Rong Zhan and eliminate a vital weapon of the Li family, which would greatly increase his chances of finishing them all off. The protagonist then put on his mask to hide. The moment Rong and the mercenaries looked in the direction of the pillar where he was, Yazi was already camouflaged. At that instant, a mercenary announced that Haobo wanted to see his uncle. Realizing he couldn't miss this opportunity, Yazi left the area as quickly as possible. Rong sensed a presence behind the pillar and began to wonder if he was being overly vigilant. Even so, he ordered the mansion's security to be strengthened, as he didn't want to allow anyone to leave there alive. The hours passed, and when it struck midnight at the Li family mansion, the young master asked if he could go to sleep yet. He argued that the zombies were still active, and that no one would come to eliminate him at that hour. However, his uncle Rom insisted it was better to stay awake, as his intuition told him so. The young master grew irritated with the situation, as he was bored and didn't want to stay up all night for someone who didn't even dare to show their face. Noticing this, the butler suggested he find some entertainment. The idea pleased the young master, who decided to find some amusement to pass the night while waiting for Lindsay Luo. He then asked his uncle if they had captured a zombie, and Rong confirmed, explaining it was for research and weapon creation. The young master replied that since there was so many zombies out there, he wanted to play with that one first. His uncle was afraid he would get hurt, but at the same time, he saw it as a good chance to calm him down. Li Haobo assured him he wouldn't get hurt, stating he wasn't afraid even if the zombie became enraged, as there were many bodyguards in the mansion. Convinced, Rong ordered a mercenary to bring the zombie that was captured during the afternoon for the young master to have fun with. Soon after, several people appeared, restraining a large, powerful zombie. It was bound in chains and thrashed hatefully, trying to break free. Next, the young master asked for his giant iron cage to be brought. His servants obeyed and brought the cage, which had women trapped inside. At that moment, he began to ring a golden bell, which terrified the prisoners as they knew what that sound meant. With a strange expression on his face, the young master stood up and approached the women, making obscene gestures and asking one of the soldiers to give him the key to the cage. The group of mercenaries obeyed and handed him the key. As the young master prepared to open the cage, other men pulled the zombie closer and removed the iron mask covering its mouth. He told everyone to calm down and wait for the person who would unchain the zombie's feet and put it in the cage. That's when a person intervened, saying that this was too cruel and asking why he didn't just let the women go. Seeing the master's furious reaction, one of the staff quickly apologized, explaining that he was a new recruit and didn't know what he was saying. Li Haobo turned to the recruit and asked why he was telling him what to do. The other staff member begged the master to forgive him and spare the new boy's life. Ignoring the plea, the young master remarked that it had been a long time since anyone had dared to challenge his authority. He then asked if the recruit, named Wang Dahu, knew how to fight and ordered his soldiers to restrain him. The men obeyed and immediately started throwing punches at the newcomer. To everyone's surprise, the recruit managed to block the punches of the two men, without taking a single blow to the face. The display of strength made Uncle Rong find him interesting. The mercenary whose punch was blocked was in shock, unable to believe he had lost to a recruit in a contest of strength. Feeling humiliated, he shouted that the newcomer would pay with his life, and called two other mercenaries to help him take him down. The other mercenaries commented that the man, nicknamed Gorilla, was wasting his time with women, which was why he had been bested by an untrained guard. Then, they grabbed the recruit and pulled his arms behind his back, immobilizing him. With the newcomer defenseless, Gorilla charged forward and landed an extremely powerful punch on his face. He repeated the blow several times, while other people uncle begged him not to kill the young man. The request was made by the young master himself, and his men intended to obey. He said that since Wang wanted to protect the women, he would let him watch as they were eliminated. So, the men placed Wang in front of the iron cage, just as they were releasing the giant zombie's restraints. Soon after, 3 mercenaries pushed the creature into the cage using clubs. The women were terrified when the zombie entered without chains, drooling with hatred, and without wasting any time, it pounced on one of them and cruelly eliminated her. Wang watched the scene crying, feeling helpless because he could do nothing. After he screamed a lot, the guards ungagged him, and Dahu simply accepted his fate, falling to his knees. Seeing this, Li Haobo ordered them to put him in the cage, stating that since he supposedly had super strength, he should face the strongest zombie. The mercenaries praised the master for the idea, saying that not even they would have thought of it, and that he knew how to have fun like no one else. They then began to drag Wang Dahu to the cage by force, while the other women were eliminated one by the zombie. Finally, they threw the young man inside, where the muscular zombie was already watching him with a sadistic look. The giant zombie began to advance on the recruit. At that moment, Wang remembered his mother asking him to be careful, as she would be waiting at home. Crying, he thought he wouldn't be able to go back to see her again. However, he decided it was not the time to be eliminated, precisely because his mother was waiting for him. With this new determination, he stood up and punched the zombie in the chin, catching it by surprise. Next, Wang grabbed the monster's torso and tried to throw it to the ground. Using all his strength and in complete desperation, he managed to throw the zombie against the iron bars. Suddenly, blood started coming out of his mouth and he didn't understand what had happened. It was then that he realized the zombie had dug its claws into his abdomen, leaving him severely wounded. The young master, watching from the outside, found the scene very exciting. Even injured, the boy did not give up the fight. He held the wound with one hand while punching the monster with the other. At the same instant, Wang fell to the ground. The zombie also fell, defeated. On the ground, Wang began to cry, mentally telling his mother that he was wrong. Uncle Rong commented that it was a shame, while the mercenaries thought he lost too quickly. Suddenly, the young recruit's body began to change, with black veins appearing, his eyes turning red, and sharp fangs emerging from his mouth. While all this was happening, the protagonist realized the perfect opportunity had arrived. He approached a guard from behind and silently eliminated him, without anyone noticing. Then he stole his clothes, and the disguise worked perfectly. To deceive other soldiers, he said he had seen a man sleeping when he was arriving there. The guards began to complain that the leaders were having fun while they did the hard work of protecting the doors. The protagonist, being honest, agreed, and said that the leaders didn't treat them like humans, but just as disposable soldiers. Suddenly, one of the soldiers noticed that the supposed Adi was taller than usual, and began to suspect it wasn't him. Elsewhere, Li Haobo commented that a fool who tells secrets does not deserve to live in this world. As suspicion grew, the hero continued to get rid of the guards one by one. One of them, however, managed to fire a projectile into the air to alert the Li family. Quickly, the protagonist threw his knife at the projectile and stopped it from alerting the others. He then thought about how he had searched extensively for the Li family's ammunition in his past life, and that this time he had found it in a not-so-gentle way. With the Li family mansion detected and the external security eliminated, Lin's revenge finally begins. The system then activates a special grudge mission, informing him that he needs to become a Reaper and eliminate all 269 members of the family. Besides his desire for revenge, the good reward offered by the mission is another reason for the protagonist to accept the challenge and begin the hunt. The system also allows him to check the attributes of the Vengeance Barrier, a special item that will be used. The barrier reveals the location of anyone who tries to leave the area, and prevents them from feeling anything while trapped. This item was used in the war between the Dragon Continent and Japan, a time when all of Japan was in despair as those who escaped the capital were hunted down. Yazi thinks this will be the perfect day to test how good the item really is. The system congratulates him on starting the mission, and wishes him good luck. Suddenly, the elimination counter jumps to 9, even though Lin hasn't done anything yet. Surprised, he runs to the mansion to check what is happening. Inside, the Li family is confronting a man named Crocodile, who has annihilated all the girls, leaving none alive. Crocodile then tells the men of the family that they can play with him, repeating the taunt several times until Rong stands up to take action. Rong had never felt such a murderous aura, one that made his own seem insignificant. The young master of the Li family becomes very scared, realizing they have come to eliminate them. The butler tries to calm the young master, saying he will be fine, as Rong and the mercenaries are there to protect him. They already know the killer is inside the mansion as he defeated all the guards outside. Rong reflects that even if the guards weren't elite, defeating them all alone would make the invader a god. At that moment, our protagonist declares that he is just a human who will be the Reaper for all of them. Immediately, the mercenaries and Rong start to move, searching for Yazi until a flashbang is thrown near them. As soon as the grenade explodes, Everyone is blinded and panics. Taking advantage of the confusion, our protagonist enters the room with a powerful aura around him. He activates the Thorn Strike from his bracelet, which summons and fires projectiles that eliminate the entire group in the room. Next, he uses his boomerang sword to annihilate other soldiers, until he suddenly appears behind Uncle Rong and drops another grenade near him. The second grenade explodes in flames that consume the place, while our protagonist emerges unharmed and triumphant, wearing his mask. Rong had barely seen the enemy and had already lost several of his soldiers. A servant recognizes the thorn magic that nearly wiped everyone out, and comments that the boomerang sword is also used by elite soldiers. Rong asks how many men are still alive, and the servant replies that 66 remain, with another 10 injured. Elsewhere, Li Haobo is in shock, wondering who could have ruined his plans like that. Completely enraged, he demands revenge and orders them to search the place, even if the enemy is a monster. The butler, however, senses that this person is still nearby, watching everything. Hidden, our survivor didn't expect the butler to be so perceptive. Yazi was sure he would emerge unscathed and defeat the remaining ones, planning for half of them to escort Li out of the mansion. He opened the files for the butler Zhao Qiguang and for Rong Zhan, noticing they had bronze-class items. Sensing his hesitation, Rong ordered him to come out and stop being a coward. But Lin didn't fall for the trick, as he knew it was a distraction so that Li Haobo could escape. To stop their plan, the protagonist took the zombie cat's horn and summoned it. Right after, he threw a knife at a chandelier which shattered on the floor. The shards of glass and the summoned cat began to eliminate the soldiers, while our hero used his sword to annihilate the mercenaries. Before long, he had killed everyone there, leaving only Rong Zhan alive. Rong looked at the masked protagonist, completely in shock that he couldn't read his information, and asked who he was, telling him not to get cocky. Yazi replied that they had poor skills and had barely trained over the years, stating it wasn't even worth eliminating them. Even so, he said he would show them true despair, and rushed toward the remaining soldiers. With a single move, he managed to eliminate several at once, stopping right in front of Rong Zhan, who became scared and fell to his knees. The masked man then warned that he would pursue Li Haobo and the rest later, activating the vengeance barrier to ensure Li hadn't fled too far. Rong challenged the protagonist, saying he wasn't the group's leader, as all the mercenaries had already been eliminated. Yazi explained that the best part of revenge was eliminating the subordinates first, to make the leader lose the will to resist. Desperate, Rong begged to know who he was, saying he didn't want to die with regrets. Our hero coldly replied that dying with remorse was perfect for someone like him. Ignoring Rong's last wish, he struck with his knife and ended his life. As he did so, Yazi remembered the day Rong stepped on his head and called him a worm and an orphan. Now, he was getting revenge for everything. He thanked Rong for teaching him not to talk so much in front of the enemy to avoid trouble. Yazi was happy to see that he died with remorse, considering his revenge a success. With Rong's death, the Li family was weaker, which would make it easier to deal with them in the future. He then left the place, leaving a trail of bodies behind. Meanwhile, Li hoped no one was pursuing him, and his butler reassured him, saying that Rong would take care of the enemy. However, at that very moment, one of the subordinates was thrown forcefully against the wall. Li immediately thought that Lin Ziluo had hired someone, as this person had eliminated Yao and was now coming after him. He didn't understand how they had discovered his relationship with Yao or where Lin had found such a strong assassin. Li found it all impossible, since they had eliminated Lin's father and wiped out his family. He said that if it weren't for a certain boss, the boy would already be dead along with the rest of his family. It was then that he heard the assassin's voice and recognized it as Lin Ziluo's. Shocked, Li wondered how he had gotten there and found that place. The protagonist, in turn, understood that Li had been keeping an eye on him the whole time, which added even more fuel to his revenge story. Face to face, Li said he should have sent someone to eliminate him a long time ago. In response, our protagonist confronted him about what he had said regarding the Li family wiping out his family. The young master mocks Lin Ziluo, saying he deserves his situation for not even knowing his own father's name. He reveals that Lin Jian, the boy's father, was going to be promoted, but ended up reporting Li's father and destroyed the family's years-long plans, and for that, he deserved his fate. The young master adds that if it weren't for an order from the boss, Lin wouldn't have been the sole survivor of his family. He then questions how the boy found such a strong helper, and how he managed to get past the guards if he did it all alone. Lin Ziluo replies that it doesn't matter what he says, because he will turn the entire Li family to dust. The young master laughs, stating that he is overestimating himself and won't be able to destroy the entire family alone. At that exact moment, the hero kicks down the door and enters the room, wearing his mask and accompanied by the zombie cat. The butler immediately tries to punch the intruder, but Lin Ziluo dodges with ease. To protect its owner, the zombie cat jumps on the butler, who however manages to throw the creature aside. Yazi realizes that he only has 30 minutes left before his summon dissipates. He then takes off his mask, leaving everyone in shock as they see that the killer was him all along, and that he did everything alone. The young master is extremely surprised to confirm that the criminal is indeed Lindsay Luo. He finds it impossible that the boy had the strength to eliminate his uncle and the skill to infiltrate the mansion. Lindsay Luo then explains that as long as he is protected by the 7-day newbie system, none of their abilities will have any effect on him. Even so, the young master can't believe it and wonders when Lin became so strong. Our hero declares that he alone is more than enough to annihilate the entire family. After saying he won't leave the old man alive, he prepares himself and attacks the butler. However, when he tries to land a punch, the butler manages to defend himself using his arms. Lindsay Luo comments that the butler's physique is good, and that such a punch would have defeated Rong John, acknowledging that, at this point, the old man is the only one who can give him a hard time. Seeing this, the family's butler rips his suit, revealing an overwhelming physique. Lindsay Luo uses his sword to attempt to slash, but the butler dodges and accuses him of fighting dirty. Determined to finish them all, the hero throws his dual explosive sword. The weapon grazes the butler's shoulder, leaving a superficial cut. However, the sword starts to come back from behind him like a boomerang, and lands a deep cut on his arm. The butler can't believe he is being defeated so quickly after practicing martial arts for 50 years. He refuses to accept defeat, but suddenly suffers an explosion. The protagonist takes advantage of the situation to run towards the butler with his sword in hand. He states that he can't leave any loose ends, and will only rest in peace when the enemy is gone. Lindsay Luo finds the butler stubborn, because even in the apocalypse he still thinks the fight is just about moves and technique. After eliminating the butler, Yazi reflects that it's not enough to be strong. One must master and understand the situation, otherwise death is the only way out. Seeing young Master Li on the ground, Lindsay Luo calls him useless. He takes his sword and pierces Li Haobo's leg, who starts to scream. Tired of seeing him pretend, our hero stabs the sword into his leg several times in a row. Amidst the screams, the master threatens him, saying his father won't let him get out of this alive, but then immediately starts begging to be finished off at once. Our hero then says he will grant his request and takes a dull, tetanus-infected dagger from his inventory, ironically apologizing for it being dull and not piercing properly. Next, he says the next stab is for himself, to compensate for the 10 years of suffering he had to endure, stating that the pain Li feels isn't even 1% of what he felt. Hearing the mention of 10 years, the young master is confused. He, Li Haobo, had only tortured him because of events from the last 3 years. Stabbing the boy's arm again, the protagonist says that one is for himself again, and the next piercing is because it's making him happy. The next stab is for the Lin family, whom he never even met, and to avenge his father, while for the following stabs he doesn't even care about the meaning, only about the fact that they make him happy. Finally, he takes a torture tool from his inventory and places it on Li's tongue, who despairs. The protagonist explains that this method was created by Li himself and used to eliminate many people in the past. Before the young man could say anything, he rips out his tongue. Even with Li screaming and crying non-stop, Lindsay Luo doesn't stop, and seeing the enemy completely motionless, asks if he can't take it anymore. He comments that what he is doing now doesn't compare to the torture methods Li created and used in the past life. After a few more stabs, he realizes that Li isn't playing dead, concluding that he overestimated him, and that the young man lacked the ability to fake something like that. The fact that Li had a mental breakdown only proves that his body had reached its limit. To ensure he has finished Li Haobo, he uses his explosive dual sword, taking out an umbrella to protect himself from the explosion and debris. Quick verdict check. Pause for a second. Rate this so far from 1 to 5 stars. Is this peak? Getting good? We're still mid. Drop your score in the comments right now, and tell me what you think. Explosion and debris. As he watches the city view at night from the balcony of the Li family mansion, the system informs him that the Heart of Vengeance talent has been activated following his change in mental state. The protagonist doesn't understand what this new talent is, so the system explains that talents and skills are different. Skills can be learned through books, while talents can only be activated based on his own attributes, emotions, mental state, and other conditions. The Heart of Vengeance ensures that every debt is paid, and upon identifying an enemy, his stats increase by up to a maximum of 20%. The protagonist didn't expect this talent to be so useful, as increasing a base attribute by up to 20% was incredible. His base attributes in the game only ever increase, and when combined with talents they become even higher. He realizes that this is a talent that can grow continuously, and that he has found a true gold mine. With this, the player manages to defeat the 269 people of the Li family, and finish his quest for vengeance. As a reward, he receives a random item from the Golden Finger system and a bronze class item. When the system asks if he wants to draw the item now, he clicks the button to confirm. The random bronze item is a magic wand that increases magic power and spellcasting speed. However, the protagonist can't use it, as he is not a mage. He then decides to save the top-tier item to sell on the market later for a good profit. He also reflects that the Golden Finger's automatic looting is very useful, as he doesn't have to worry about losing equipment. He assumes that this game's elimination mechanic is a mess, because when someone is eliminated, their inventory disappears permanently, preventing other players from taking the person's items. Players can only loot bodies if they see something good visible on them. He realizes he only has the chance to loot the bodies now, as other players will soon discover this mechanic and will still continue to eliminate enemies this way. He concludes that this is the system's way of discouraging eliminations between players. Next, he opened his inventory and found a purification necklace. It was a bronze item that purified skills and increased spirit, as well as removing negative statuses like blindness. However, its attributes weren't as good as those of the meditation necklace, which could save a life in battle. Realizing that the other two items he had weren't useful, Yazi decided to toss them in storage for now, and asked the system to draw a Golden Finger item for him. The system took a while but completed the draw. Yazi received a skill to enslave a zombie, as long as the creature's strength was not greater than his. The zombie would then obey his commands and protect him. He was shocked, as he had never seen anyone controlling zombies in his past life. Yazi even pinched himself to make sure he wasn't dreaming, as it seemed too good to be true. Immediately, he began to devise a plan based on the loyalty of the zombie he could control. This meant he would no longer have to do all the dirty work by himself. Since discovering Yao's betrayal, Yazi had grown to distrust everyone and had planned to be alone forever. That's why the idea of having a zombie that would do the work without complaining was perfect to help heal his internal wounds. He then asked what new effects he could get if he increased the level of the zombie enslavement skill. The system informed him that if he increased the skill's level, the number of zombies he could control would increase by 1 each time. With this information, Yazi began to have wild thoughts, imagining a horde of zombies under his control. To reach that level, he knew he would have to level up this skill many times. He wondered what kind of zombie he could control, and if they could become emperors after being enslaved. Yazi didn't know if they would reach the same level as in his past life, but he decided to think about that later, as he knew the Lee family's basement was full of treasures. Going to the mansion's basement to check, he opened the door and his eyes lit up at the sight of the jewels and expensive items stored there. However, he knew that in the apocalypse, those things were completely useless. He recalled that the calligraphy on some paintings would be useful later. He just couldn't remember which ones specifically. So he took those items and also some gem-encrusted knives. Leaving the basement, Yazi took a look around, and, since he had never had so much luxury in his 2 lives, he decided to spend the night in the mansion. However, a huge zombie appeared, blocking his path. At first glance, Yazi didn't realize it was a zombie, and thought it was a survivor from the Lee family. Soon after, he realized it was a level 4 zombie, with a strength of 25 and the natural super strength talent. Yazi noticed that this zombie was very strong, and that during the night with its enhanced attributes, it would become a bronze boss. He thought it was a huge coincidence, as he had just gained the ability to enslave zombies. Facing the creature, Yazi banged on the bars and said that the zombie ought to be trying to bite him. Seeing that the creature's spirit was only 3, he concluded that the zombie must have been a complete idiot when it was human. He asked the system if he could enslave a zombie with such high attributes. The system replied that he could, as the zombie's mental capacity was low, and the sum of its stats did not exceed Yazi's. Realizing how good this zombie was, Yazi felt envious of its talent and its stats. So, he placed his hand in front of the zombie and told the system he was going to enslave it. He knew that the zombie's stupidity was a good thing, as it would make it obedient, so he confirmed that he wanted the creature for himself. At that moment, a red energy began to take over the zombie's body, and Yazi noticed it was resisting the control process. Noticing the zombie's resistance, he wondered if it was too late to regret his action. However, the enslavement process was successful, and now he could give the creature a name. Seeing that the zombie was tall, very strong, and had an epic super strength talent, Yazi decided to name it Dasha. He had managed to subjugate Dasha, who would now be obedient to his commands and protect him even if it cost its own life. Soon after, a status screen was created for the zombie, displaying all of its attributes and skills. The system sent a reminder that Dasha couldn't store items or gain reputation by defeating other zombies. His evolution method was different, and Yazi wanted to see him prove himself, as he didn't think the cage could hold him. Proving the protagonist right, the zombie began to bend the cage bars with great force, destroying them and breaking out of his confinement. Yazi expected the zombie to do more, but he already considered it a miracle that he obeyed him. Next, he equipped a bracelet on his zombie to increase his constitution. The system reminded him that Dasha wouldn't get a status boost during the night, but Yazi understood, as his attributes were already absurdly strong. With everything settled, Yazi went to sleep and left Dasha guarding the door to protect him. When day broke, the hero left his room and saw the zombie still standing at the door. He congratulated Dasha and asked if he fed on other zombies. When the creature indicated he did not, Yazi considered him a good and kind type. After that, the hero used his cards to prepare his daily meals. While he was eating, the zombie's mouth watered, indicating he was hungry. Yazi offered the monster food, surprised to have never seen a zombie that didn't eat human flesh. When he added more food to the table, Dasha became very happy and sat down to eat with him. Yazi was glad the zombie would help him consume the food, as he had been afraid of having to throw the excess away. His original plan was to finish off Li Hao Bo at level 5 or 6, but now he had already completed his revenge at level 8, and no longer needed dungeons to level up. With his powerful weapons and Dasha's help, he might be able to go straight to the ghost location. His next destination was the museum in Magic City, where he could change his class. He remembered that there was a key to a scroll that allowed a class change, but to obtain it, he would need to enter the class change space and undergo the trials. If he didn't complete it in time, he would be erased. In his past life, he only managed this thanks to Li Hao Bo. At that time, Li Hao Bo and his friends went to Magic City in search of treasure, and that was when Yazi received the news that Yao Jigan was betraying him. When he wanted to seek revenge, Li bribed his 3 friends who tricked him into entering the class change space. There, he received his scar while facing a monster, as they wanted him to fail the test and be erased from existence. Unexpectedly, he passed the test, but was left with a scar for 10 years. In his past life, this occurred on the 8th day of the apocalypse. Since it was now only the 4th day, he believed there would be no one in Magic City. This time, without Li Hao Bo in his way, Yazi thought everything would be much easier. Seeing his zombie Dasha eating, the protagonist realized he attracted too much attention and had an idea. He decided to dress his pet zombie in fancy clothes, putting him in a suit, a hat, glasses, and even placing a sword in his hand. After that, the two of them headed to the Modu Museum, which was teeming with zombies. Arriving there, he noticed that someone had already been to the location, which was unexpected and made him more cautious. He moves through the zombies, eliminating them one by one with his knife, and soon receives a congratulatory notification from the system. As a reward, he obtains a bronze tier single-use item, which is a fireball scroll. The survivor finds the item interesting, as he can either cast the spell or make it explode. Suddenly he realizes that his zombie Dasha isn't attacking the other monsters. Equipped with his wings, the protagonist hides behind a pillar to get a better look, and notices that Dasha won't take the initiative to attack unless he is attacked first. He considers it useful that the big idiot doesn't need to eliminate anyone to open chests, which will prevent trouble. However, he knows that chests opened by Dasha don't grant experience or items, which would be a waste. He decides to continue observing, remembering that in his past life, all the zombies in that location were eliminated, but now it would be very difficult for him and the big idiot to defeat them all by themselves. Looking up at the museum's upper floors, he notices a group of people and thinks it would be a good idea if Dasha went inside to get the class change scroll for him. He realizes the group wants to hunt and surround the zombies in the museum, but they lack the manpower. Seeing these people, the protagonist concludes that the tracks he found earlier were left by them, and thinks that joining their group to enter the museum could save him a lot of trouble. Meanwhile, inside a shopping mall in the city, a large group of survivors is in the middle of an argument. The leader, a woman, decides she needs to gather 200 people and orders everyone to prepare their weapons. Her soldiers are outraged by the decision, questioning why they need to wait for more people instead of acting immediately. They confront her, saying they are hungry, and accusing her of wanting them to die so she can steal their resources. In response, the group leader slaps one of the soldiers hard across the face and tells him to shut up. The man retorts, saying she's only arrogant because she has a bronze rank iron staff. He states that he'll ignore the slap if she sends him on the mission, but she refuses, saying she won't submit to him and that he's useless for the mission because he does nothing. The soldier replies that he won't do anything for now because he's a gentleman, but warns that he'll finish her as soon as he gets a chance. The woman humiliates him further, and he warns her not to blame him later for what happens. The others present begin to encourage the soldier to fight the woman, but the group's leader interrupts, telling everyone to stop arguing and listen to him. At that exact moment, the protagonist and Dasha burst into the place, breaking down the door. Entering masked, he immediately recognizes someone there. The group's leader, Gao Dong, introduces himself as the club's president and says they can join the Reapers. The protagonist, in turn, also recognizes Gao Dong and is surprised that he is the president. He then introduces himself as Lin Ziluo and presents his companion as Big Idiot, explaining that he is his bodyguard and can't speak. Gao Dong shakes Lin's hand and welcomes them to the Reapers group. Realizing that Gao Dong seemed foolish, Lindsay Lowe thought it would be easy to trick him. He never imagined it would be so simple to join a group and commented that he had been part of one before. In response, Gaodong said he would get them settled at the base and offered skill books that could help them get stronger, since their goal as brothers was to fight and defeat zombies. Lindsay Luo wondered if he could get the books for free, and Gaodong confirmed that as friends, he would hand over a book at no cost, even though it was valuable. Upon receiving the item, Lindsay Lowe was surprised, as in his past life, players were not so generous. As soon as he opened the book, he received the Berserk skill. The description said that upon entering this mode, he would lose his senses and attack everything around him, while his strength increased by 50%. He would also lose consciousness for 2 minutes, practically becoming a zombie, which made him think he would fight worse because of it. Gaodong admitted the side effect was a bit bad, but argued that, in a desperate situation, the skill could save him. He then revealed that he gave him the book because he was plotting something and wasn't as dumb as he seemed. Lindsay Lowe thanked the president for his sincerity and returned the book. When Lindsay Lowe said he and his brother were going to train, he realized Gaodong's smile was an illusion. Just as they were leaving, the president stopped them and offered a bucket of fried chicken as compensation for trying to trick him. Our hero refused, explaining they needed to hunt zombies to level up, but in reality, he had fallen for the lie and thought it would be impolite to accept the food card as well. Even so, Gaodong placed the card in Lin's hand and told him to get the food from the warehouse if he got hungry. The two brothers left, thanking him, and Gaodong said that if they needed anything, they just had to come back to the base. As he watched the two walk away, the leader thought that Lin was a good person, because even after receiving a terrible skill book, he seemed happy. On their way, the brothers came across a group of strange people. A man approached and said that this wasn't a threat, but a warning, telling Lindsay Luo to stay away from Gaodong or he would suffer the consequences, even if he was strong. In response, our hero removed the henchman's hand from his shoulder, twisted it, and then told the big idiot to do his job. The henchman pulled out firearms and underestimated the big idiot, as he was only level 4. However, the zombie began to eliminate the men with extreme ease. After defeating several of them, Lindsay Luo asked if they still had anything to say. Everyone was in shock and said nothing more. The remaining henchmen explained that the man who led them, Jia Tai, wanted to be the boss and compete with Gaodong, and that he was a helper, whom Gaodong himself used as a warning to others who might want to take his power. At that moment, the group's leader appeared, asking if they didn't have anything better to do. One of the henchmen approached and whispered something in his ear. Gaodong then asked if Lindsay Luo and his brother had really eliminated Jia Tai. The henchman replied that he knew nothing about the newcomer, only that he had a brother whom he called an idiot. The leader, however, stated that our hero had done him a great favor, as eliminating Tai in front of everyone had helped him, since now no one else would want the position of club president. Finally, Gaodong asked his men to find people to bury the man, give him a decent funeral and share his items. Meanwhile, the protagonist and his zombie, whom he calls the big idiot, are in a room passing the time. He asks the system if the zombie could ever hurt or attack him, but the system assures him that under normal conditions, this won't happen, as the zombie acts according to the rules to protect the player. Looking at the big idiot, he sees him trying to eat something and failing. The protagonist knows he can control its actions and even activate a berserk mode to increase its attributes. He then hands a skill book to the zombie and tells it to read it properly and learn, as his goal is to reach level 10 to change class and become infinitely stronger. With this plan in mind, they decide to test the berserk skill on the idiot and, at the same time, level up by eliminating other zombies. They head towards the library, a place he remembers being very good in his past life. When they arrive, they find a door with the inscription, Game Store. When the hero presses the button, a message appears welcoming player Jie. Suddenly, he finds himself in the middle of an empty technological space, with various information about types of masks, weapons, and other items. He realizes he has 6,000 coins, and that with just 2,000, he could already buy a bronze item. His desire is to buy the complete armor set he is missing. While he tries to buy what he wants, a strange hand enters the space and startles him. He narrowly manages to dodge being hit by the zombified hand, and realizes the store wasn't broken, but that a zombie had entered the space. The monster leaps to attack him and Lin is surprised, as he never expected to find a creature living inside the game store, something that had never happened in his past life. He wonders if the zombie is being protected by the system. When the female zombie tries to advance, our hero acts faster and lands a slash across her throat, eliminating her with ease. He then uses the system to automatically collect the items from her body, hoping for a weapon or a piece of equipment. To his surprise, he receives a roll of toilet paper, which is a resource card. Finally, he uses his 6,000 coins, and as soon as the purchase is complete, the game store closes. After the virtual space disappears, he grabs his things and goes to see what the big idiot was doing. He discovers that the zombie has defeated several other creatures, protecting him while he was busy. He finds the automatic item collection feature incredible, as it means he doesn't have to worry about losing anything. With a pause in the battle, he decides to check the new items he gained from these eliminations. He obtained an old scarecrow, which functions as a life-saving item, as the damage the protagonist would have received goes to the scarecrow instead. He also got a boxing glove that can deliver continuous attacks that increase in strength with each hit. He noticed that the new boxing glove had an ability similar to the double explosive blades, as it also exploded and increased in power. Besides that, he got a sword whose power increased and which, ignoring the side effect, could be one of the best weapons in the bronze class. With this, he equipped the glove and decided to use the fusion stone to merge his two swords. The stone had the potential to increase the equipment's level, but there was also a risk of making it worse if he was unlucky. Even though his cheat system only guaranteed the item drop rate, he used the fusion stone knowing he could lose everything. His hope was that by fusing the sword from the ring with the horizontal sword, the resulting item would be much stronger. The system asked for confirmation, warning that both items would disappear, and the protagonist accepted. The fusion began, with a 30-minute waiting time, which he and the big idiot spent beating. At the end of the process, he obtained a silver rank demon decapitation sword, which left him in complete shock. He rushed to see the new weapon, and upon confirming that its power had quadrupled and that it could decapitate enemies more easily, he decided to go back to hunting monsters. He and the big idiot returned to the library to retrieve the scroll that had been left behind. This time, the protagonist told the zombie not to hold back and to eliminate all enemies. In the library, the zombie obeyed and began to mercilessly take down several monsters, while the protagonist used his new sword to cut down the others, eliminating several at once in a row. Using the weapon's whirlwind feature, he finally reached level 9 and gained an attribute point. He was happy to have leveled up, but was immediately shocked to see that Dasha had grown to a gigantic size and had red eyes. The protagonist wondered if the big idiot's settings were for a beast-like human. He asked Dasha to wait while he cleared a bathroom and arranged to meet on the roof in 10 minutes. 30 minutes later, the two reunited at the location, where some zombies were already waiting. The protagonist then ordered the zombie to activate berserk mode. Entering a state of complete fury, the big idiot began to grow enormous. To make him even angrier, the protagonist said the zombies had eaten his chicken, which made Dasha start punching everyone with great aggression. While the big idiot fought, the protagonist sat down to drink tea and watch. He realized the berserk mode was very strong, as Dasha annihilated several zombies at once, with his attributes doubled, and also receiving a boost because of the darkness. His combat skill was incredible, as expected from his natural strength. After a few minutes, the frenzy mode began to wear off, and the big idiot shrank back to his normal size. The hero was surprised by such an impressive ability, and noticed that Dasha's eating speed had increased by 30%, converting food into energy to heal his wounds. Realizing the zombie had become a war tank, he checked the items the system had collected: 2 strength equipment scrolls, many potions, and a chest plate. The chest plate he got increases physique and agility, in addition to generating a shield around his body for 3 seconds. The mind potion in turn recovers mental damage he has sustained and lasts for 4 minutes. He hopes that after strengthening and absorbing the blood ring, he'll also be able to absorb energy during combat. Determined to bet on it, he fuses 2 rings, and, luckily for him, the process succeeds again. After the strengthening, he obtains the level 2 absorption ring, which absorbs energy from enemies during combat. Soon after, he goes to test the new item, and manages to absorb the enemy's energy through the blood ring, noticing with satisfaction that his attributes are extremely high. Satisfied, the two stop resting and get up to continue their journey. They arrive at a place that is completely destroyed, and from the scale of the destruction, our protagonist imagines there is a boss nearby. He remembers that in his past life, when he reached this point, the boss had already been defeated, and he never thought he would enter the location this early. Therefore, he is eager to see what the boss will be this time. Suddenly, he comes across Mo City's shop and receives 10 prestige points for finding it. The system informs him that players should not spend more than 30 minutes a day in a shop, because if they do, a high cost will be charged. If a player refuses to pay, the system will eliminate them regardless. As he is the first customer of the city's shop, he receives a 50% discount on his first purchase. Before entering, he tells the big idiot to stay behind to protect him, and then enters a booth to buy the items. Upon clicking the option to see the products, he remembers the shop's rules, which prohibit the use of force and require that, in case of a fight, nothing be broken or dirtied to avoid cleaning and repair fees, just like in his past life. He enters the items section and sees a flash grenade, a bow, an ice scroll, and strength pills. Feeling very rich, he wonders if there are any items he doesn't already own. At that moment, the system detects that the player is not satisfied with the shop and its items, and so it decides to display secret products. These city shops have items that can only be bought by players who have contributed to the city, which makes our hero wonder which other city he has also contributed to. He wants to see what the secret treasures of the Mo City shop are, and discovers that he is considered a contributing and honored citizen. The system confirms his status the moment he enters the shop. Among the secret items, he finds a city crest of honor that costs 20,000 coins, a guard's uniform, and also a mark of a city guardian that costs 10,000 gold coins. Since he only has 6,000 gold coins, he could only afford the cheapest item. However, thanks to the 50% first purchase discount, he manages to buy the city's garments, which are the most expensive item. He confirms the purchase and says he doesn't need any other items from the shop. The system thanks him for his visit and hopes he will return to buy more items. Our hero leaves with the city guard uniform, which is diamond ranked. The item has excellent quality and an illusion ability that hides his other items and clothes. Additionally, the uniform is self-cleaning, adjusts to high temperatures, and can even clean off tomato sauce. The uniform's ability causes people with a lower reputation than him to have their attributes reduced if they attack him. Furthermore, he can now create a quest for a player in Mo City without having to pay the reward. He concludes that, as expected, the city-exclusive equipment is really good. Wanting to test the new items in combat, he unequips everything and prepares to see the uniform's effects. He focuses on the illusion ability and activates the city guard's chest plate, causing the effect to manifest around his body. He keeps equipping and unequipping the item to test the ability, until he receives a warning that he has been in the shop for 30 minutes and must leave immediately. Satisfied with the illusion effect, which maximizes his flexibility and concealment, he grabs the big idiot by the arm and the two of them leave the shop to avoid any penalties. Once outside, the protagonist decides to test the ability to create orders and tries to give the big idiot a quest to destroy the world, but the task doesn't pass the system's detection. Next, he tries to create a quest to eliminate a legendary boss and another to destroy the bookstore with a single punch, but both also fail. The only quest the system initially accepts is one about women, which he considers accepting but quickly changes his mind. Finally, he tries to create a quest to eliminate the boss of the Mo City bookstore, and this time, the system allows it, asking if he wants to proceed. The hero accepts and asks if he can check if there is a boss nearby. Then, he and the big idiot leave the room to eliminate the secret boss the system revealed. Meanwhile, elsewhere, two people are hiding in great fear, hoping no one finds them. Suddenly, a pair of bright red eyes appears in the darkness and spots the two youths. The girl starts to scream in despair, but the boy covers her mouth and tells her not to make a sound. At that moment, a monster with a huge tongue appears, clinging to the wall, and runs its tongue across the girl's face, who writhes in agony. The boy, holding the girl named Xiao Mei, decides to run as fast as possible. Just as they are about to reach the door to escape, the monster grabs the girl's foot, making her fall to the ground, and in a matter of moments, cruelly eliminates her. The boy can only watch the scene, crying with rage and helplessness. It is at this moment that our protagonist and his pet zombie arrive at the scene, finding the giant-tongued monster feeding on the two bodies. The hero thinks that it's even liberating for ordinary people to die now that the game's protection period is over. Looking at the monster, he comments that if it weren't for the noise, he wouldn't even have known the creature was there. The protagonist then realizes he has found the monster that allowed him to change his class for the first time. He reflects that the class change for zombies is similar to that of humans, as they also have their own development paths. The evolution of a boss is faster, and the differences between zombie types appear early in the game's initial stages. Assassin zombies, for example, are very fast like human assassins, and eat brains to become smarter. This particular monster is a bronze rank level 10 reptile zombie, with two skills, one for concealment and one for attack. The moment the protagonist found the zombie boss, the resentment of the reptile zombie mission was activated. The cheating part of the system begins to show the hero more details about the mission. It turns out the library administrator used to steal books, and after turning into a zombie in the apocalypse, he now wants revenge on everyone who reads. Linzalo is surprised to discover that the apocalypse game had this function of helping people get their revenge. Our hero ordered the big idiot to stop that zombie and not let any other monsters in. With eyes red with rage, the big idiot faced the reptile zombie and prepared to deliver a powerful attack, raising an iron pike. However, the pike bent upon hitting the creature, and Lin realized it had used its ghost stealth ability. Immediately, the monster became a shadow on the wall, impossible to hit. A moment later, the creature began to emerge from the shadows to attack the big idiot from behind without him noticing. However, before it could hit its target, the zombie received a cut on its hands from our survivor. With its hands cut, it began to cry, and our protagonist called it weak, saying it was already scared. The reptile zombie then shrank and grew new arms while crying in pain, but our hero felt no pity and delivered multiple slashes with his sword. The zombie started to cry and run, screaming that someone was about to eliminate it. Seeing this, Lin said he would give it a chance to escape and began to count to 3. As soon as he reached the number 1 in his count, he activated the fast-chasing wind and his winged cape, starting to glide toward the monster. He approached faster and faster, warning that he was getting close. As soon as he reached the special zombie, he delivered another powerful slash with his sword. The slashes struck the creature, causing it to explode, while Lin received 100 coins and 50 experience points. With that, he completed the Tracker Zombie's resentment quest, and gained many prestige points, coins, and more experience. He finally reached level 10, but he could no longer level up, as he had not yet changed his profession. Now, he needed to wait for the professions channel to open, while his experience points accumulated, which was why he wanted to find the scroll as quickly as possible. Upon reaching level 10, he received the chance to gain a random super rank item, and he accepted. Lin Ziluo didn't want to be the first to change his profession, as that would trigger a global announcement. He could have 2 professions, and one of them would be announced, with no restrictions on his choice, and they all increased his attributes. The system congratulated him for obtaining the yin-yang ability, which allowed him to have 2 professions. Lin found this incredible, and asked if the system was suggesting he would dominate the world in the future. At another point, the big idiot and our protagonist were observing a horde of zombies from the top of a building, along with a group of survivors. Later, our hero entered through a high-tech door, and finally stood before the scroll he had been searching for. He began to throw several punches to try and break the glass protecting the item. After many attempts, the glass began to crack, and our hero delivered one last stronger punch, shattering the protection and getting his hands on the scroll. Thus, the class change ritual began, and he entered a strange space to undergo the profession change process. The scene then flashes back in time, to that afternoon, before the newbie protection period ended. He and the big idiot entered a building, and asked when they would raid the museum. The leader of a club replied that they had already gathered 200 people, and would soon go to the Modu Museum to raid it. Now that Lin Ziluo had arrived, the leader would summon the rest of the members, knowing that if the operation succeeded, no one could compete with him for the position of president. The president of the Death God Club announces that this is an important day, as they will face a great battle. He says they will mobilize everyone to eliminate the zombies from the Modu Museum, and take back the cultural heritage. Next, he asks everyone to gather to raid the museum, and the people get excited at the chance to win bronze tier items. Lin, however, is bothered to see everyone treating the situation like a normal game, where they eliminate monsters to level up, knowing that most of those idiots will be annihilated when the newbie protection period ends. At that moment, a pointless fight breaks out among the club's soldiers, who get angry and start hitting each other. After the fight, they climb a building to observe the zombie horde. The president asks if Lin's strategy will work, and the protagonist replies that if they are fast, no one will get hurt. He assures the leader that they won't get another chance like this, and that they must carry out the plan. As everyone already knows it will work naturally. Since Lin is the fastest, he plans to lure the first horde of zombies using virus-infected meat, leaving Dasha with Gaodong. The protagonist notices that Dasha likes the giant hammer, as he is swinging it in the air non-stop, but he doesn't care much, as the hammer suited him anyway. Before leaving, the soldiers wish Lin Ziluo good luck, knowing that the first wave of monsters is always the worst. Our hero then sprints through the middle of the zombies with the virus-filled meat in his hand, attracting several of them who start to follow him. He quickly hands the meat to another person, saying he will help them deal with the zombies, and that the reward will be theirs when they return alive to see Dao. The two thank Lin Ziluo for being so kind, unaware that the protagonist's true goal is to find the scroll before anyone else. With that, Lin runs even faster, knocking down some zombies on his way until he reaches the scroll room. He opens the doors to the place that holds the class change artifact, and finally lays his eyes on the item. Lin finds the scroll disappointing, for something that makes hundreds of people risk their lives. Seeing the item with a strange drawing and a ring beside it, he starts punching the glass to get it. After several punches that crack the glass, he lands a massive final blow that hurts his hand, but shatters the protection. Upon taking the item, he discovers that the strange scroll holds a great secret and gains 500 prestige points. The scroll then begins to summon the player Jia Yai, asking if he accepts the call. Our player accepts, and is immediately teleported inside the scroll. When he opens his eyes, he is in a strange room, with several flames around him. He places his hands on a kind of portal and remembers that this is the right place. At that moment, the protagonist activates the test to perform the class change. He knows there are secrets within the scroll waiting to be inherited, and to do so he must complete 3 mysterious tests. Just like in his past life, the test is merciless, for if he fails, he will be destroyed. But if he wins, he will gain a level and a class. The system, however, deceives him, saying that if the player fails, there will be no penalties and he will be saved, unlocking the Ancient Elders test mission. The mission promises an inheritance that has existed for centuries, and a silver-ranked item as a reward. Lin finds it strange because although the Shadow Ghost class is high-ranking, it is unworthy of such a declaration. He knows that the Phantom Assassin is the legendary profession of the Ancient Dragon continent, a class that changes at level 30 and then at 80, but it doesn't fit the previous statement. Confused, he asks the system what will happen if he accepts, but receives no answer. Even without an answer, Lin Ziluo decides to accept the mission. The first test begins with him on a stone staircase, where he must place his hand on a golden orb to start. As soon as he does, he feels an energy manifest and approach, enveloping his body and transporting him to a completely red place. There he finds himself on a rock floating in an unknown space, and upon touching the ground he realizes the surface is covered in something that looks like tomato sauce. Suddenly, a vortex begins to form, making our hero afraid. He remembers that in his past life, he relied only on his hatred for Yao Jigan to pass this test, acting uselessly as he sat on the ground, consumed by rage. However, in this life, he is a different person, and is determined not to make the same mistake. As his clothes get dirty, he stares at the portal in the distance with a smile, preparing for the challenge. He concentrates and manages to control his anger, proving to himself that he was capable and thus passing the test. A voice then informs him that it was enough and that he can return. Upon crossing the portal, he completes the first stage and reflects that the test was designed to make people lose themselves in a frightening environment. Next, Lin Ziluo heads to the portal for the second test, remembering that in his past life he fainted before finishing it, which means this is the first time he will experience the trial completely. Voices in his mind begin to tell him to give up, warning that if he faints again, he won't be able to go to the third test. However, Lin Ziluo decides not to listen, as he will not give up. He has lived all this before, and now has the chance to see the end, so he has to go all the way. Remembering how he used to be, he reinforces his desire to be a different person, and enters the second test with confidence and his head held high, arriving in front of a white door that emits a very strong light. He wonders if that would be the end of the world, but upon realizing he managed to last until the end, he feels relieved and understands that this is the true meaning of being reborn. After passing the second test, Lin Ziluo heads to the third and final one. He stands firm, prepared for the final challenge, as he remembers that it was in this test that he was ambushed and got his scar in his past life, and now he wants to make the one responsible pay for it. Determined, he enters the portal and steps into the trial area. As soon as he is informed that he needs to eliminate the Guardian, Lin Ziluo draws his sword. Almost immediately, his sixth sense alerts him to something coming his way, so he dodges just in time to see an attack hit the cave wall beside him. Soon after, an unknown black cat appears and approaches, saying it has waited a long time for this lunatic dame. Lin Ziluo recognizes it, as it was this same cat that attacked him and left him with permanent scars. At that moment, he receives the talent of omnipotence, which allows him to use weapons and equipment within his reach. To prepare, the protagonist closes his eyes to focus on his technique and listen to the cat's approaching footsteps. When the Guardian leaped, the protagonist sensed the movement and, still with his eyes closed, delivered a slash with his sword. The strike was successful and left a cut on the cat's eye, exactly as had happened to Lin Ziluo in his past life. The black cat, now wounded, spurted a lot of blood and grunted in pain. With that, our hero managed to defeat the Guardian, pass the third test, and get revenge for what happened that time. Upon finishing, he was congratulated, receiving the scroll for the Ghost Assassin class and leveling up. Despite the victory, Lin wondered why he was still in the cave, since he should have been transported out after eliminating the Guardian. Thinking he might be trapped, he started climbing the rocks in the area and concluded that he wasn't there because of the game, but because of his cheat system. Upon reading the mission description, he understood the reason. The mission to inherit the scroll's true power was not yet complete. He was shocked to realize he had not yet inherited the real power. Obtaining the class change scroll was just the first step, and the second was to activate it to obtain the power contained within. So, the protagonist decided to try, and the system informed him that the player must accept the scroll's internal power. Lin Ziluo was happy he wasn't trapped in the cave by a bug. He then asked where he should go, and the system replied that he should maintain silence. He wondered if the scroll could silence the cheat system, or if they were related in some way, but he decided not to think about it, and just move forward with the hint he received. He never imagined there was an exit in that cave, and wouldn't have found it without this help. Walking through the area, he found a crack and realized it was part of a pattern, as its lines connected. When he placed his finger in this crack, it began to emit a light, revealing a cave painting of a bird and a bull that he had seen before. At that moment, the entire place began to shake, frightening the protagonist. He then pushed the stone with the drawing of the creatures, and discovered it was a door, which led to a secret room with a glowing scroll and an orb. The moment he picked up the scroll, a very bright light began to emanate, and the word Chi-Yu, a mythological figure from the Nine Li tribe, appeared. He understood that Chi-Yu was the key piece of information in the scroll, and that the bull and the bird were the tribe's totems. He remembered the legend that Chi-Yu was eliminated by the emperor, beheaded and buried, with his head turning into a sinister forest. According to the legend, ghost cats preserve souls, and Chi-Yu's was preserved because he found one of them. Knowing his soul would be dissipated, Chi-Yu created the scroll's test so that someone could inherit his tribe's power, with the final stage being guarded by cats from the ghost cat's bloodline. Through the test, a person would qualify to inherit the power, and now he was finally placing his hand on the figure. As soon as he took the scroll of the tribe's true power, he began to undergo the inheritance of an unknown power. A very strong energy took over his body, and the system eliminated his known blue star energy. Soon after, the unknown energy began to merge with the blue star energy from the Apocalypse game. When the combination was successful, the player began to change class, being named Soldier Lord by the game. The system warned that he should finish the test quickly, as the new profession needed more digitalization. Lin, who wanted the ghost assassin profession, never expected to go through Chi-Yu's test. Upon opening his inventory, Lin Zilo found it interesting to see that his new class was Soldier Lord. Suddenly, an orb stuck to the back of his hand and would not come off. He soon discovered that this was the orb of the Nine Li, the weapon of his new class, which linked the power of Chi-Yu directly to him. The item's function was to change shape according to the player's thoughts, and also to devour energy to increase equipment attributes, which made Lin Zilo understand that he could grow without limitations. Soon after, the item moved to his forehead without his permission, but he understood that this was Chi-Yu's special weapon, and decided not to complain. With that, he finally left the test, and returned to reality, officially receiving the Soldier Lord profession, which was fully digitalized. His base attributes, without equipment or titles, were 18 strength, 19 agility, and 16 mind. Additionally, every time he leveled up he would get 3 points in strength and physique, and 3 more attribute points to distribute. Thanks to the experience gained and the 1-level reward from the mission, Yazi reached level 13. With 49 strength and 46 physique, his attributes were so high that he could walk through a horde of zombies without any problems. He was also congratulated for being the first player to change class, receiving the Pioneer achievement. Next, a global announcement informed everyone that the evolution of his class could turn him into a god of war. His new abilities included controlling the tribe's orb, which transformed into any weapon, and another class skill, as well as a third ability that remained unknown and had not yet been awakened. Lin was in shock as he realized he was not dreaming, and that all of this was really happening, feeling incredibly strong and almost invincible. To test the Nine Li tribe's orb, he picked up a baseball bat for it to absorb. He clicked on the option to devour energy, and the orb began to glow in the air until, after devouring enough, it evolved into a silver-ranked item. It grew much larger, and he noticed something red inside it, until the Nine Li sword, a silver-ranked weapon, appeared in his hands. The sword increased strength by 4, and physique by 2, and its attacks had 10% armor break. It possessed the sword slash ability, which dealt 120% of strength as damage, and the heavy slash, which increased strength by 200%. Impressed by the shape-shifting, the protagonist examined the sword's blade, and then transformed the orb into a 9-Li bow and arrow. The bow increased strength by 4 and agility by 2, and it had 2 special abilities. The first was fire arrows, which increased damage by 120% of strength, and left the enemy with a burning condition. The second was the ice arrow, which dealt the same damage but left the enemy slowed due to freezing. Continuing the test, he transforms the orb into an assassin's dagger, then into a shield to simulate a tank class, and even into a swordsman's sword. However, when he tries to transform it back into a bow, the orb crumbles to the ground. He receives a warning that his mind has been overused, and that if he keeps forcing the changes, he will feel dizzy. Only then does he realize that the transformations used mental power, and he begins to feel extremely tired. Meanwhile, a global server announcement informs everyone that he was the first player to reach level 10 and change his class. This means the other players will have to work hard, as he received the Pioneer achievement and several rewards for it. Upon hearing another global announcement about Jia Yi, the other players become visibly irritated. Meanwhile, other players recognize his name, and remember that he is the same player from the global announcements. Because of this, the lower-level players feel obligated to level up to try and catch him. To avoid feeling dizzy, the protagonist uses a mind recovery potion, and is immediately congratulated by the system for obtaining the Pioneer achievement. As a reward, he gains 1,000 prestige points, 200 coins, 3 attribute points, and 2 extra inventory slots. He clicks to see the details and discovers that Pioneer is a unique title, given to the first person who changes class, increasing their attributes by 2, and applying a 5% attribute suppression on all other players. After understanding that everyone needs to change class before facing the bronze rank boss, he decides to draw the silver class item. The drawn item is the Devil's Ghost Mask, which possesses a certain demonic energy, and a warning not to become a servant of evil. The mask hides basic information and causes anyone who looks at it for 3 seconds to become paralyzed with fear. Our hero then activates the item's ghost effect to hide his information, puts on the mask with a diabolical smile, and asks the system to use his cheat. The system normally allows the use of only 1 ring at a time, but with his ability, he can increase this limit. Thus, he raises the number of rings he can wear to 2, which gives him a great advantage compared to normal players. For now, our protagonist decides to leave the second slot empty and wait to get another ring. He also needs to distribute 12 attribute points, so Lin does this frantically and decides to return to the group. Everyone gathers for an announcement from the Reaper group. The big idiot stands guard while the leader announces that they will begin the siege today. Introducing the big guy as one of the main contributors in the Modu Museum mission. During the announcement, the pet zombie remains in love with its chicken, and the leader even acknowledges that chicken thighs are the big idiot's life. At that moment, the protagonist appears in his new mask and clothes, surprising everyone. Gao Dong is happy to see him, as his delay made them think something bad had happened. While they talk about the upcoming battle, several girls become charmed by Lin Ziluo. Gao updates him, saying they have defeated over 1,000 zombies, recruited more people, and gathered many resources. He also mentions that the big idiot single-handedly defeated over 100 zombies, contributing greatly to the group. Then, the leader takes our hero aside for a private conversation. The leader thanks Lin for the operation, and asks if he is free to talk later. He comments that with more people, they will have more manpower to carry out tasks in the future. Our protagonist sees this as an opportunity to use these people to find more items, and get his orb to the diamond rank. With more people, they can find more resources and raise everyone's levels faster. He plans to use resource cards to trade for coins and equipment, which are necessary for his orb's evolution. With this idea in mind, our protagonist decides to talk about trades with the president of the Reapers Club. Gao Dong asks what kind of trade he wants to make, and states that because of his and the big idiot's great contribution to the operation, he will do anything for them. Our hero says he needs equipment and Gao replies that this is easy to get. To prove it, Gao places something in his hand, saying it's a surprise he prepared for him. It was a silver ring. A system notification announces that the apocalypse game has truly begun, stating it is based on justice, and that, once started, it cannot be stopped until the end. With the protection period over, the real apocalypse begins, bringing stronger zombies with more variations. The knights will become more lethal, as the undead grow even more powerful while the players weaken. The difficulty is rewarded, as the stronger the defeated zombie, the better the card obtained. Furthermore, the environments will undergo large-scale deterioration, requiring better items to withstand the climate changes, and the cities have been divided with altered ranking systems, allowing players to change classes. Seeing these changes, our hero realizes that the game is as cruel as it was in his past life, forcing everyone to fight to survive. Players can no longer stay safe in their homes, as food begins to spoil, forcing them to risk their lives to face zombies and obtain cards. As he listens to cries for help, he reflects on how the system forces everyone to choose between life and death. At that very moment, the big idiot, who is also a zombie, begins to mutate, changing in stature to become even bigger and stronger. Jia asks the system why this is happening. The explanation is that the big idiot's attributes have conflicted with his zombie evolution. Because of the system change, he will not gain a new form, but in return, all his attributes will increase by 50%. Additionally, he will no longer need to follow the game's rules, being able to change classes and gain new talents freely. Seeing this, our hero decides to help the idiot switch to a secret class, since he can obtain 100% of the inheritance. Upon analyzing his companion's new talent and skill window, he is impressed. Soon after, Jia receives several announcements for being the leader in ranking, level, and reputation in China, with the option to hide his name. He, however, decides not to hide. In the level ranking, Jia appears in first place at level 14, and to his surprise, the big idiot is in third, at level 7, even without having a class. Checking the other lists, he notices that he is also in first place for equipment and reputation. He then wonders if he should stay hidden or attract everyone's attention. In his past life, he hid his identity because of the Li family, but now they haven't grown yet and do not pose a threat. His new strategy is to use his mask to intimidate others and get servants to collect items for his orb, believing he can already support a small team. For being first in 3 different categories and possessing 3 unique titles, he earns the title of Unrivaled in the World. The system informs him that this title is only unlocked for those who are first in all 3 rankings simultaneously, and it disappears if one of the conditions is not met. As a reward, all his attributes increase. He receives a 10% discount in all shops, and his item drop rate increases by 1%. The hero feels so energized that he believes not even a level 90 god of war could harm him in this condition. He equips the title, which will become active in 1 hour, and will grant him 1 second of invulnerability when activated. He questions the system about what a 1% increase in the item drop rate means, since his was already at 100%. The system explains that this extra 1% will cause an additional item to drop with every kill. To test if this is true, he and the big idiot decide to go out hunting. The moment they leave the place, a zombie immediately lunges at Gie. In reaction, he uses his sword and unleashes a flurry of quick strikes to eliminate the creature. He eliminates the creature and realizes he was unlucky, as he had encountered a zombie skilled at hiding right after leaving. Next, Lindsay Luo hides and observes an approaching horde of zombies. Seeing that they are poison zombies, he starts running and warns the big idiot to flee as well. He explains that even though they are weak, their saliva is corrosive, and it would be problematic to stay in the area. The two then flee at high speed through the buildings, climbing one of them to shake off the monsters, before escaping through the back unseen. Continuing on their way, they pass by enormous zombies feeding on humans, and soon after find a group of hopeless survivors. The people were disheartened because the zombies were getting stronger, while their resources were running out. Just as a young woman begins to distribute what seems to be the last of their food, Lindsay Luo sees his chance. He approaches and says that if they want to live better and have more hope, they just need to pay some coins and equipment in exchange for a full day's worth of food. Immediately, all the survivors get excited and accept the offer. With this trade, our hero manages to acquire 10,000 gold coins and delivers the promised food. Noticing the commotion, he orders everyone to stop the noise, warning that the sound would attract zombies and that he would let the big idiot finish them off. The threat works, scaring the survivors, who stop shouting at once. After that, he returns to Gao Don's base, where he had been given a room for himself. There, he intimidates the leader of the Reapers, who allows Lindsay Luo to command the group to do as he pleases. Our hero then whispers something in the club president's ear, who agrees to carry out the request. Lin hopes that Gao is smart, but reflects that even if the plan fails, he won't lose anything from it. Knowing that more mutant zombies would appear the next day, he concludes it's time to accumulate coins and items, as well as check if Dom would be willing to trade equipment for resource cards. In the late afternoon, he and the big idiot go out into the streets to hunt zombies. The creatures advance toward the pair with ferocity and at high speed, but in a matter of moments the entire horde had already been eliminated by the two of them. Lindsay Luo tells the big idiot to keep hunting more zombies, so that the other survivors can have a moment of rest. During the hunt, he finds a place he decides to turn into a base for them. His plan is to set up a magic shop so people can buy things, allowing them to get rich and enjoy life. He believes there won't be any security problems, since the zombies have been eliminated, and he plans to set up a resource card toll at the entrance. He figures that someone strong has already defeated the monsters in the area, but probably didn't discover the magic shop that existed there. As soon as our hero enters the place to claim it, he comes face to face with another group of survivors. One of them immediately warns that the place is already occupied by his people. The situation changes when a bald man recognizes the big idiot and warns his leader, identifying him as the second-ranked player in China. At that moment, Lin understands that the idiot surpassed Zhang Yuan and reached the second position because of his automatic growth as a zombie. The group of survivors then welcomes the big idiot, who reacts angrily and nearly attacks them with his sledgehammer. However, our protagonist holds him back, stating that they only came to buy items and nothing more. Meanwhile, one of the henchmen comments to the chief that, although the idiot seems rich and strong, they have enough people to take him on. The leader disagrees, explaining that he is no ordinary opponent, as he is second in the China ranking, and has already defeated more zombies than their entire group combined. Hearing the conversation, our hero realizes that the Mo City insignia is truly worth the asking price, and concludes that if they work hard, they can buy it before anyone else. The Mo Guardian's insignia was purchased for 9,000 coins, and was already in Lin's inventory, who took the card and activated the item without wasting any time. It was a special diamond rank item that would bind to his other items upon activation. Soon after, the mark of the Guardian of Mo City was successfully activated, and its massive discretion surprised our hero with the number of benefits. However, he received a warning that he could not buy another insignia, not even the same mark again. Lin had thought he could buy all the marks as long as he had the coins, and he noted that although he couldn't create an army of robots, he could create things based on his level. He decided to set that aside for now, as he didn't know when he would get the chance to buy the next one. After settling the matter of the insignia, they left the magic shop and returned to the street still in the late afternoon. Elsewhere, in the area of a base, a group of survivors was defeating zombies to clear the region. During their exploration, they finally found the class change location they had heard about. Not knowing how to use the portal, they decided to look for supplies and good weapons in the surrounding area first. It was then that one of the girls in the group found a strange crystal ball. As soon as the girl found the object, another red-haired girl shouted for Xiaofei not to touch it. However, it was already too late, as Xiao touched the crystal ball and a large explosion occurred on the spot. The noise made everyone scream as a barrier began to form around them. Seeing what happened, her friend said she needed to change her habit of touching unknown things. Xiaofei replied that she didn't expect it to activate something, and that she would be more careful next time. So they decided to stop arguing and try to find a way out. While searching for a way out, the boy holding a lantern warned his friends that something was coming from behind them. At that exact moment, a huge level 18 boss zombie leaped right on top of the group. Everyone was immediately terrified by the giant, furious, red-eyed monster. The creature, which had spikes on its back, didn't take long to eliminate all the young survivors. After defeating the group, the boss zombie was surprised by someone approaching and entering the barrier. The monster let out an intimidating, rage-filled roar to try and scare the person away, and a cloud of smoke appeared where they had passed. Watching everything from above, a person commented that this was the result of their recklessness. Then, this person warned their two friends not to repeat that group's mistakes, and not to touch strange things. At that moment, the protagonist and the big idiot arrived at the barrier's location. The trio watching from above started running to hide from the two who were approaching. They hid behind a pillar, observing the protagonist with his mask and his ally. One of them wondered how those people had been brought there, and decided he would get a clearer look at the next opportunity. The hidden group soon realized that the big guy was the big idiot, China's rank 2, and they hoped he would defeat the area's boss. Their leader, however, disagreed, recalling that the young people who were eliminated had also been strong, so the idiot probably couldn't face the monster alone. Even so, they decided to wait and see what would happen, hoping the big idiot would die in the fight so they could take his equipment. Suddenly, the big idiot let out a grunt in the direction of the three hidden players. Our protagonist simply considered them three naive players and decided he didn't want to waste time on them. Lin Zilua then remembered that the zombie protecting this class change area was a Titan-type boss. He knew that in his past life a group of mercenaries had defeated it, but he wasn't sure exactly how strong the monster really was. Lin knew that if he defeated the boss protected by the apocalypse, he would activate the class change location, and wouldn't be able to leave the shielded area. As soon as 30 players were in the area, the shield would be forcibly activated, forcing everyone to face the boss. Furthermore, the defeated players would be devoured, which would increase the zombie's strength and level. The protagonist recalled that in his other life, the boss had reached level 40, and now they were approaching the battle. When they arrived in front of the device that initiated the mission, they found ketchup stains and resource cards. Since there weren't 30 players yet and the mission hadn't started, there was no harm in collecting the items. While casually looking at the cards, the masked man touched the magical device. From a safe area, the trio of survivors watched the protagonist activate the danger zone. The system detected that player Jie had touched the spirit crystal, activating the class change mission in Mo City. Since only 2 players were detected in the area, the mission's reward would be increased. A notification indicated that the boss protecting the class change station was about to awaken. At that moment, the cheat system activated and optimized the mission-related parameters. It was explained that the class change stations had been created in the cities to deal with the emergence of zombies. The protagonist decided he would use the mage class and asked the big idiot to use the warrior profession. Just then, they came face to face with a colossal red-eyed zombie. It was a bronze rank level 19 boss with absurd strength and 2 very powerful skills. Lin scoffed, saying that the monster's attributes matched its titan-like appearance. He realized the boss had no combat experience, while he himself had already defeated countless zombies and possessed the Orb of 9 Lai. This made him think that defeating the colossal zombie would be easy. The mission to defeat the titan zombie activated as soon as he faced the monster. He accepted the mission, which had a 24-hour time limit and offered a silver rank item as a reward. The giant zombie, in turn, thought it was going to feed on the protagonist. Lin immediately took his 9 Li bow and arrow and fired a purple energy arrow, which hit the monster's arm but didn't seem to have much effect. Next, the protagonist ordered the big idiot to attack the boss. The big idiot struck the monster with its sledgehammer, and the monster blocked the blow with its arm. However, right after the sledgehammer's impact, ice began to form on the spot. The ice came from the arrow our hero had fired, showcasing his usual precise aim. The monster's arm froze, and in reaction, it let out a very loud and powerful roar. The sound wave was so strong that it gave our survivor a headache, forcing him to his knees. Annoyed by the Titan's sound wave ability that had stunned him, Lin watched the big idiot charge the monster, only to take a punch to the stomach. After that, the zombie pulled the ice arrow from its arm and roared in rage. Time passed, and night fell. The battle continued, with the Titan using a sledgehammer to try to hit our protagonist, who managed to dodge. Lin materialized a bow and arrow from his orb again, and fired multiple elemental arrows that hit the Colossus on various parts of its body, until an arrow to the forehead finally injured it. When the monster fell to the ground, our hero prepared what could be a fatal arrow. Lin noticed the zombie had been a builder before it died, and seemed to be continuing its work, even though it could no longer fight. Finally, he said it was a pity to turn one's back on an enemy, and prepared the final shot. However, the Titan surprised him, as it was actually building a shield, which it used to block the shot. Seeing this, our protagonist grew tired and ordered the big idiot to activate Berserk mode. To provoke the big idiot, Jie said that the Colossus ate 5 chickens while it was unconscious. This immediately enraged the zombie, causing it to activate Berserk mode and furiously jump on the giant monster. Meanwhile, the protagonist looked for a better position to fire his arrows. The two giant zombies engaged in a hand-to-hand fight, trying to push each other. At that moment, Lin Ziluo found the most suitable spot and shot an arrow full of red energy, which masterfully hit the Titan zombie's buttocks. Angered by the arrow, the Titan took out its rage on the big idiot with a powerful punch, and then pulled the arrow out. Our protagonist tried to say it wasn't on purpose, but the monster was already full of hatred and charged at Jie. The big idiot blocked the attack, jumping on the Titan and holding its head in a chokehold. However, the colossal zombie managed to break free, and at that moment, our hero prepared another arrow, shooting and hitting an inappropriate area again. He apologized to the zombie, which became even more enraged by the second shot to an intimate area. Soon after, the big idiot's berserk mode entered its cooldown period, and it began to shrink. Our protagonist then prepared many arrows in his bow, and warned the idiot to dodge. Taking advantage of the last moments of berserk mode before it weakened, the idiot landed several punches on the Titan. After the shot and the punches, a curtain of smoke rose, preventing our hero from seeing the scene. Offended by Jie's despicable insult, the zombie broke its limits and activated the Titan bloodline, evolving into a silver rank boss, something the protagonist hadn't expected to happen until it was near death. With the evolution, marks appear on the Titan zombie's forehead and torso, and its eyes glow even brighter. Its attributes increase greatly, and a legendary talent emerges, boosting its physical strength, reducing magic damage, and causing its attacks to now stun targets. Its abilities also grew stronger, dealing more physical damage and lowering the enemy's attributes when it screams. Seeing that the Titan zombie has evolved to silver rank and gained a legendary talent, the mission becomes much more difficult. The reward will also be better, but our hero wonders how he will manage to defeat it. As the zombie charges at Jie in a rage, it feels it can defeat him however it wants. Before the monster gets any closer, Lin grabs his bow and shoots several arrows. One of them hits the Titan's arm, but the area recovers very quickly. Realizing this, Lin Ziluo transforms the bow into the 9 Li sword and jumps, lunging at the monster with his sword in hand, managing to land a cut that injures it. He also notices that he can't count on the big idiot, as he is busy eating chicken. Knowing he is on his own, he takes out a summon card to call forth a fighting robot. Additionally, he uses the horn to summon the zombie cat to help in the fight. To attack the monster, he begins to prepare the heavy slash skill of the 9 Li sword. As he concentrates to deliver his blow, the monster tries to crush him with a massive attack. At the exact moment the Titan throws its arms toward him, he executes the slash. The heavy sword strike is successful and hurts the zombie. However, after the attack, the player will become stiff for 2 seconds due to the weapon's recoil. Meanwhile, the villain is thrown far away by Jie's powerful slash. Immediately, the robot jumps toward the monster and lands a strong knee strike on it. Taking advantage of the situation, the zombie cat also charges at the Titan, delivering a large dash to its body. From all the attacks it's receiving, the boss sinks deeper and deeper into the ground. To top it off, the protagonist lands another slash with his new sword, though he realizes that using his consciousness to control the summons is quite tiring. After a few seconds of being stunned by the attacks, the zombie finally wakes up and attacks again. Jie dodges as the villain, now weak after using berserk mode, comes back to his senses. The protagonist notes that he used the Titan's fury at a difficult moment, and decides to fight head-on, as he knows the monster's punches will get stronger and stronger, until he can no longer withstand them. He doesn't want to run away, and since he injured the zombie's arm, he knows the enemy's attacks will be more difficult to handle. Therefore, he decides to go all out. When the Colossus tries to throw a punch, the masked hero jumps over it to dodge. He dodges again and takes the opportunity to slash the monster's nape with his sword, continuing to run as a red liquid drips from the enemy's neck. At that moment, the system announces that it has detected more than one person on the team, and that the reward would be reduced because of it. GIE is surprised, but continues to attack alongside his robot companion. Just as the monster falls to the ground, seemingly defeated, the protagonist notices something. He sees a group of 3 people entering the area, telling each other to take it easy. The group in fact had decided to hurry to claim the mission rewards, with one of them thinking he will become famous for being the first in the world to activate the profession change. The girl in the group tells them to hurry, as GIE is about to defeat the zombie. Annoyed, one of the boys tells her to be quiet, saying he can't stand her anymore, and even threatens her. The girl starts to tremble in fear and stops talking. Just then, the masked GIE suddenly appears behind the group. Startled, they say they are his fans because he is very strong, and that after watching him fight, they decided to bring friends to help in the battle. However, the protagonist, who had already seen them hiding before, asks why they only showed up now. Without mercy, our hero uses his sword to eliminate the opportunistic boys, calling them all hypocrites as he annihilates them one by one. He says he hates people like that, and the girl starts to scream in despair upon seeing so many eliminations. Next, GIE uses his demonic gaze on the other 2 boys who survived, causing them to start attacking each other. Lin considers them scoundrels for having joined the mission just to get the rewards. When the team is reduced to 1 person, the system announces that the reward will be increased. The protagonist knows that if he encounters missions where the difficulty increases with more members, he will surely die. At that moment, the only boy who survived says that GIE is a hero in China, and that as a hero, it is his duty to help them. He demands to accompany him to earn at least a small share of the rewards, stating that it would be a mistake to eliminate him. Ignoring the plea, the protagonist throws his spinning sword and eliminates the young man. As another team member was eliminated, the reward increases again. GIE states that he will not let go of any grudges, and that he is not a hero. He acts on his own and doesn't like to do anything for humanity, warning that anyone who tries to stop or provoke him will be eliminated without mercy. Soon after, the system announces that 2 more eliminations have increased the mission's reward. The protagonist gets annoyed that they tried to blackmail him using morality, and wonders why no one stopped the Lee family from persecuting him for the good of humanity, concluding that they are all a bunch of hypocrites and that's why he eliminated them. After finishing off the Titan zombie, he receives a lot of gold and becomes the first to defeat a silver rank boss. The system congratulates him for completing the mission, and informs him that he will get 2 random items of the same rank. GIE is stunned to realize the reward has doubled, and without wasting time opens the mission chest. Inside he finds a scroll and a writing quill. It explains that if Lindsay Lowe signs the terms, the class change station and its benefits will be activated. Excitedly, Lindsay Lowe signs his name on the spot, and is congratulated for completing the mission that activates the station. As a reward, he also gets 500 reputation points, 3,000 gold coins, and 1,500 experience points. With this, he reaches level 15 and obtains 3 points in strength, physique, and other attributes to distribute as he wishes. He is also congratulated for being the first player to activate the class change station, earning a unique achievement and wondering if this was the reward the system had increased. Meanwhile, GIE overhears distant conversations of people wanting to claim their reward and looking for a quiet place to do so. Next, he slaps the big idiot in the face, telling him to eat more chicken. The slap makes his companion wake up and get up, so the 2 of them continue on their journey. Other players in the area see a portal open in the sky and wonder if GIE really defeated the zombie, considering the chance that he might have activated a mechanism that would bring a high-rank zombie to use them as food. Shortly after, a global announcement informs everyone that GIE was the first to defeat a silver-rank boss, receiving a unique achievement and many rewards. Another announcement invites players to learn from him, as he was the first to change his class, and informs them that because the first class station has been activated, players in Mo will have their level up and item drop rates doubled when defeating zombies. At that moment, a huge explosion occurs, leaving the players in shock. However, they soon become excited when they realize they have actually leveled up, becoming fans of GIE. The excitement is so great that some start defeating each other to receive experience points and gold coins. Watching everything from a distance, someone remembers that just the day before, 30 people died trying to activate the same station. Elsewhere, someone shouts that they knew GIE wouldn't be satisfied with just one announcement, and that he wanted 3 global announcements. Meanwhile, an important figure comments that the player is from their region, but went to Mo when the apocalypse began, and states that since he belongs to that region, he will surely return to embrace his homeland. Far from all the commotion, GIE and the big idiot look at their status panels. Lin Ziluo sees that he is now at level 16, with 12,000 gold coins and 6,000 reputation points, and he boasts that his progress was faster than the beginner's protection period. GIE thinks that he wanted to remain hidden, but now that's impossible, and decides to claim his reward, opening the scroll again. The scroll reveals the details of the Overlord profession, which grants strength and power to conquer the world. His attributes increase automatically, and he can put the unallocated points into mind. He also receives the automatic item collection skill at level 1, but because of his cheat, the skill already starts at level 2. He considers these 2 new skills useful, and believes they will make things easier in the future. Furthermore, the item drop rate for all players is doubled, and Jia's title adds another 1%, which means Lin Ziluo's total drop rate is now 201%. He also receives silver rank equipment, which are a hidden battle armor and magic pants. The armor was created to fight mages, reducing magic damage by 10%, while the pants decrease magic damage by 5% and increase the mind attribute. As soon as he equips both items, their effects are activated, resulting in a total magic protection of 15% and a general increase in his attributes. Noticing that his agility and mind attributes were lower, he decides to add points to them, leaving both at 40 points while the rest remain at 50. Soon after, he decides to use the 2 lottery draws he won from the cheat system. The first draw gives him a strength potion, which he believes will play a critical role in battles. Overall, he thinks the 2 items aren't very useful, but it doesn't matter much as he is rich enough to buy any item he needs. He then checks his unique titles, one for defeating a silver rank boss, and another for being the first to change class. Reflecting on this, he concludes that all his luck was spent on getting the Overlord class, so the mediocre rewards he received afterward are at the very least a good deal. At that moment, he decides to use his 2 silver rank item draws, praying to every god he could think of for good rewards. The first item is a scroll that allows him to inherit his father's profession, boosting his attributes and making it easier to slay monsters. The protagonist finds the item rather ordinary and useless for now, but he stores it away, thinking it might be useful in the future. Next, he opens the golden chest and gains an inventory space expansion, along with experience points and coins. Along with the other rewards, he receives Hua Chang's watermelon knife, a gold-rank piece of equipment. The knife increases strength, physique, attack speed, and headshots, in addition to granting a special ability. The protagonist thought the knife was good, but the ability was terrible, as activating it required shouting embarrassing words. For this reason, he decides to let his orb devour the weapon. He realizes he has no time to rest. After all, only 24 hours remain, and he decides to make the most of it. To withstand the strain, he uses his recovery potion. At that moment, the big idiot appears and the protagonist says that after wounding the enemies, he will leave them all for the pet. As an incentive, he promises that for every 20 zombies defeated, the pet zombie will be rewarded with a roasted chicken. The promise makes the big idiot eager to get to work, and the protagonist then activates his weapon, the 9 Li orb. He transforms the orb into a sword, just in time to encounter a bloated zombie. Our hero lands a single slash and eliminates the monster, receiving 3 rewards for defeating the level 6 heavy zombie. He then orders the big idiot to slam his hammer on the ground to attract more zombies. The big idiot obeys, and the sound of the hammer striking the ground attracts hordes of enemies. With that, our hero begins to defeat several level 7 zombies in a row, earning coins and points with each kill. Meanwhile, elsewhere, someone is looking at Jia's item ranking and notices that his strongest piece is a diamond-class outfit. Seeing the high quality of the equipment, the leader of the Hun family deduces that Jia got them by defeating the silver-rank boss. Li Haobo's father then orders a young family head to take the situation seriously. After the young man says he wants to meet Jia Yi, the boy replies that the head of the Li family is bothering him and claims that the 2 of them are no better than he is. Then, he says that Li Haobo is weak and won't survive the apocalypse. The older man ignores the insult and returns to the main topic, which is Jia Yi. He comments that he had never heard of such a person in China, and is surprised that someone so unassuming has become the strongest in the country in just a few days. Their plan is to find Jia Yi and try to convince him to join them, which would be a great help to their company's plans. The white-haired boy then concludes that the apocalypse will be a great opportunity for them. Seeing the world plunged into chaos, they plan to take advantage of the situation to become the masters of everything. The old man comments that Jia Yi could be useful for their plans, suggesting they could take his equipment. Meanwhile, other players are facing hordes of zombies. As the rewards are getting better and better, Amidst this chaos, a strange girl with glasses, armed with a scythe, is planning to take down another player. Far away in a hotel, our protagonist observes the chaos in the streets while fiddling with his orb. He sees that Zhang Yanzhong is at a lower rank than he was in his past life, and realizes that now, he will have to try much harder. Jie reflects that if everything had gone as before, Zhang would already be at level 9 by the next day, ready to change his class. He recognizes that his rebirth has impacted the world, causing others to evolve more slowly. However, with time and his current combat strength, he feels prepared to face anything. Jie then starts taking several items from his backpack to level them up. Suddenly, a horrible smell fills the air, and he asks if the big idiot farted. Because of the unbearable odor, he decides to take his rare monthly bath. After getting out of the bath, his companion wants to wash up too, but Jie says it's already time to sleep. He remembers how, in his previous life, everyone got used to the chaotic life and simply forgot to bathe. During the night at the hotel, the protagonist and his faithful companion sleep peacefully. However, in the middle of the night, the toilet flushes by itself, and a zombified rat crawls out of it. Our hero hears the noise and comes face to face with the monster rat. The animal leaps toward him, and Jie notices that the mutation has made it gigantic. Even so, he defeats it with ridiculous ease, splitting the creature in half with a single slash. The problem was bigger than it seemed, as shortly after, several zombie rats begin to emerge from the manholes all over the city. The players on the streets get scared and start running, but many are cut down during their escape. The rats spread chaos, and soon begin to bang on the door of the hotel where the heroes are staying. Our protagonist suspects it's a monster horde without a system announcement, not just a simple gathering of rats. Figuring it's another butterfly effect of his rebirth, he decides to check the surroundings to deal with the emergency, but at first, he doesn't see that many rats on the street. Jie keeps watching for a while longer to confirm if he hadn't exaggerated his assessment. However, he comes to the conclusion that the noise he heard couldn't have been made by just a few animals. Shortly after, a very loud sound confirms his suspicions, and he finally spots an immense horde of zombie rats pouring out of the manholes and spreading throughout the city. Seeing that the rats are moving in an orderly fashion, he deduces they are being controlled by a high-level boss. Realizing it would be a very difficult battle, he decides to leave with the big idiot. They unlock the back door and flee the hotel where they were hiding. Our protagonist puts on his mask and observes the horde, which fortunately hasn't seen him yet. Jie thinks about the rewards he could get if he defeated the bosses, but decides to be careful. After all, there are too many enemies. First, he wants to understand the zombie rat's motivation. Our hero tells the big idiot to stay put and not run under any circumstances. Next, he equips the Ring of the Night and uses his cape to glide between the buildings, looking for a good observation point. He finds a spot with many rats gathered under a bridge and notices a house nearby. He wonders who would be naive enough to hide in a house after 8 days of the apocalypse. Jie thinks about using his floating skill to get to the roof, but he doesn't want to waste the skill. Even so, he decides to check the situation and continues to observe the rats from a distance. He stood still for a long time, waiting to see what would happen. Suddenly the sound stopped, and he noticed that, just like at the class change station, there was a shield separating the place from the rest of the world. He didn't expect this boon and considered himself very lucky. He then called the big idiot over to him as it was time to get to work. The two of them grabbed their weapons and prepared for battle. As they ran across the rooftops, many red-eyed crows were flying over the area. Realizing this, they stopped making noise, as there were too many zombie animals, and they wouldn't be able to handle them all at once. As he got closer to a mansion, he noticed many zombie rats and crows in the area. He found it ridiculous that they were coexisting peacefully and entering the mansion in an orderly fashion. Curious about what was inside, he used a rope to descend and investigate the place with the zombie Dasha. They landed very close to the mansion they had been observing from above and started running towards it, until something surprised the pair. They saw large animals that were also zombified, including tigers, lions, bears, and several other enraged creatures. The hero did not underestimate the bear's strength, neither in his past life nor now. He noticed that the animals that had mutated were entering a yellow portal and disappearing. Other animals still in the middle of the city of Mo also began to head there. After spending the entire night lying in wait, the hero realized that all the animals had disappeared, so he and Dasha decided to enter the yellow portal as well. As they approached, he saw that it was an unknown dungeon, and the system asked if he wanted to enter. The system explained that there are 2 types of dungeons. In the first, the level is adjusted for players to duel, while in the second, the player is teleported to a mission based on their level. It was at that moment that the first unknown dungeon in history appeared. Since he had been to many dungeons in his past life, He had plenty of experience, and with his cheats, he didn't think he would run any risks. The hero wanted the same protection mechanism he had in the mysterious trials. From the system's response, he understood that he could enter and leave without getting hurt, so he decided to proceed. He clicked the button, knowing he could be teleported back to the city of Mo at any moment. However, the system informed him that he could only enter alone without the big idiot. This was because he possessed the cheats, but the zombie did not, so Dasha would have to wait outside. Lindsay Luo grabbed his sword and was teleported into the mysterious dungeon. In the place where he was transported, flames suddenly erupted, illuminating everything. Shortly after tapping on the wall, something came towards him, and he, by instinct, cut the thing with his sword. Immediately the system warned him that he had activated a special dungeon, the Dungeon of Despair. It was a dungeon that drove people to despair by being a labyrinth from which no one had ever emerged alive. The objective was to find the exit by defeating the animals, avoiding the traps, and finding the only possible path to escape. However, the system began to alter something. As Lindsay Luo had found an undiscovered dungeon, Lin was surprised that it was a new place, and that its special entry method was a teleportation portal. He then considered the possibility that the portal was leading the animals into the labyrinth. Even with the mission restricting the effects of weapons, he could still use the 9 Li sword and his abilities. The system could not remove this bug, as his soul was shielded by the 9 Li pearl. Finally, the bug removal process is completed, and the dungeon's conditions are adjusted according to the protagonist's abilities. The labyrinth walls rise, and he notices the place has changed, thinking the difficulty level has been lowered. However, because he entered ahead of time, the dangers increase by 50%, making him think again. With the penalty set, a notification appears, stating that he can escape or give up the mission by pressing a button that appears in front of him. The button to escape the labyrinth of despair appears, and the protagonist presses it. As soon as he draws his sword, a trap arrow is triggered and flies toward him. A little startled, the hero defends himself with the sword and is pushed back by the impact. He understands that since it's an undiscovered dungeon, he would be surprised anyway, and realizes that normal players wouldn't even be able to block that arrow. At that moment, he notices several other arrows flying in his direction, and to escape, he kicks open a door and runs through the corridor. Relieved to have escaped, he thinks about taking some arrows to use as ammunition, but when he positions his sword where they are coming from, the arrows stop firing, so he decides to move forward, using his intuition and memory, and starts to get excited about finding the exit. Following his intuition, he walks to the right until he steps on a skeleton. He doesn't find any clues or anything useful on the skeleton, which seems to be there only to scare others. He continues until he reaches a door marked with the number 1, and starts banging on it. The moment he pulls the handle, he sees a giant zombie rat that leaps toward him to attack. The hero manages to land a slash and eliminate the monster quickly. With the victory, he gains experience points and food resource cards. Since he was hungry, he starts eating right there, but complains that no napkin came with it to wipe his mouth. He reflects that if he hadn't gone through the class change test, he wouldn't have been able to last this long in the labyrinth. Determined, he makes the same choice as before, and heads to the right. He starts tapping on the walls to check for traps or clues, but ends up walking through the monotonous corridors for a long time. At a certain point, a large amount of water shoots in his direction, a silly trap that only annoys him. Eventually, he finds a door with the number 2 and defeats a few more zombified monsters. Upon reaching the 10th door, he finds a zombie rat boss, which he also defeats with ease, receiving a gold and diamond ranked 9 Li orb. He realizes that the crossroads he has encountered so far are all the same, with 3 paths, 2 of which are fatal. The third path always has one route with traps and another with nothing. He concludes that the number of zombie animals in each location depends on the number on the door. Seeing the door numbered 002, he imagines he will find 2 bosses inside, since the 001 door had only 1. It is at this moment he finally understands why the place is called the Labyrinth of Despair, because there is no hope in sight, and step by step, people are driven to despair. Knowing that the monsters will get stronger and stronger, and that he needs to be careful with the traps, he finally opens door 002. As he expected, he finds 2 bronze-rank bosses. The protagonist charges at them and, after landing several slashes, manages to defeat them and reach level 18. Upon defeating the monsters, Lindsay Luo receives an agility fruit, which grants him 1 point in that attribute. Additionally, he uses a trap support card, placing it in front of door 003. With this, the 3 bosses inside fall into the pit, and he concludes his 3rd day inside the labyrinth. The 4th day begins with our hero upgrading his 9 Li sword. The weapon now increases his strength by 10 points, penetrates armor, and can inflict 130% damage. Its cutting skill deals 140% damage, with its energy reaching up to 220, while the heavy cut deals 240% strength damage, and paralyzes the target for 2 seconds. The arrows from the 9 Li bow can now be fired 2 at a time, and the spikes have a stronger tearing effect. The dual sword also had its cutting speed increased, allowing him to defeat lower-ranking zombies much faster. To test it out, he faces some bronze-rank zombie animals and manages to eliminate 3 at once with great speed. Meanwhile, on the outside, several level 10 players are also changing their classes, just like the protagonist. Everyone starts looking for news about GIE who has disappeared. However, they notice that GIE is still ranked number 1, which means he isn't dead, just lost somewhere. Back in the labyrinth, Lindsay Luo continues to use the cuts from his upgraded sword to defeat zombie animals, realizing he is much stronger than before. The fight continues until one of these animals explodes upon being eliminated, which startles him for a moment. He then discovers that he has defeated a level 9 zombie rat boss, and receives many points for it. Just as he receives a bronze-ranked chest, 2 zombie animals attack him from behind. However, in a matter of moments, the protagonist defeats them both as if it were nothing. Soon after, he defeats a zombie cow and a rat, finally reaching level 20. With this, he gains 3 points to distribute and puts them into strength and physique. Upon reaching this level, he earns the right to a super cheat item lottery, which he decides to use immediately. Using the lottery, he receives an item called Eyes of Discernment, which allows him to obtain information about living beings that was previously impossible to see. With the Eyes of Discernment, whenever Lindsay Luo looks at other players, he will be able to see everything they possess, viewing information that was previously invisible. He will also be able to see the weaknesses of monsters. The fact that all players will be exposed to him will make him invincible, but also lonely. The second part of the item's description is hazy to him, as he doesn't know to what extent he can see weaknesses, so he decides to test it on the next zombie animals he finds. In his bag, he fuses some items with his 9-Li orb, and then walks through the labyrinth's corridors. He arrives in front of a high-numbered door, and the moment he opens it, many animals rush out. A flock of red-eyed crows flies toward him, and he immediately uses his Eyes of Discernment. Analyzing the crows, he sees that one of them has a weakness to fire, and its right wing which is already slightly injured. Realizing the skill is very useful, he quickly tests it by attacking the crow's right wings with his sword, hitting several at once in their weak spot, and defeating them all very quickly. After the battle, he takes out a piece of paper and notes down the number of monsters he is defeating. After eliminating the exorbitant number of creatures from inside that door, he moves forward through the labyrinth. He continues on his way until he reaches a dead-end corridor. To be sure, he strikes the stone wall with his sword to see if it activates any secret mechanism. Following the labyrinth map with the yin-yang symbol, the hero advances cautiously. The tranquility of the path unnerves him slightly, but he knows the exit is near and keeps searching for the correct direction. Suddenly, a large door with a dragon design descends from the ceiling, sealing the open passage. With no other option, the hero enters through the giant and mysterious doorway. Inside, he sees a giant spinning red sphere. A message congratulates him for completing one of the dungeon's challenges, and he receives 2 strange rewards with no description. Not wanting to miss anything, he decides to look around to see if there's anything else in the room. He then walks toward a manifestation of magical energy in the center of the area and observes it for a while. When he touches this energy, it shatters into several colorful fragments, and the protagonist begins to float in the middle of it all. Soon after, a kind of cocoon appears in the center of the energy. The energy surrounds him and begins to hurt him, causing several wounds. Then, all this force moves toward the cocoon, which starts to crack. The mysterious energy is completely transferred to Lindsay Luo, who endured and survived the impact. When this energy combines with that of the planet, the protagonist begins to change his class. The new class is the Green Emperor, which will be digitized as he finishes the dungeon. A green ring appears in the air, manifesting the elements of nature, and when he takes it, he gains control over these elements. With this, he acquires the ability to control fire and water, and other abilities will also appear. Knowing he can become invincible with this power, the hero is eager for the future. After the class change, the shoddy construction of the place begins to fall apart. Seeing this, the protagonist clicks on the option to exit the labyrinth of despair. Right after leaving, he takes out his cell phone and is surprised by something. He is shocked to realize he spent 2 whole weeks inside the dungeon. Worried, he runs to feed the big idiot, who was left there without food all this time. He notices that, after he entered, the zombie hadn't moved a single time. Realizing the creature is hungry, he decides to bring it a chicken to eat. In the 2 weeks that passed, the other players have grown stronger and are almost at his level. Now, he and the big idiot are going to show off a bit. Meanwhile, the player Jun Yuan Jaunt reaches level 18, just 2 levels behind Lindsay Luo. He thinks he has finally surpassed GIE's level, but is shocked to see that GIE has suddenly reached level 20. Other players celebrate GIE's return as a sign of faith. One of them wonders why the big idiot left the rankings, while more people are surprised by the change, seeing the top player back at level 20. It was announced that the protagonist left the dungeon with the Green Emperor and Supreme Lord classes, pushing his attributes past 80 and 90 points. This new class increased his strength and, along with the energy beads, allowed him to activate the 9 trigrams. Additionally, he gained the 8 trigrams pendant with the yin-yang symbol, which transformed him into a master of mental control over fire and water. This meant his abilities became limitless, as he could now control the elements freely, resulting in balanced attributes and the union of 2 classes that would grant him countless new skills. Meanwhile, the big idiot was exhausted and starving, tearing his own clothes out of rage. The protagonist noticed that he was still at level 16, and then asked his pet zombie, Da Sha, to transform using his strength. Obeying the order, Da Sha smashed the ground, and his hand was enveloped by rocks around his fingers. The big idiot's class was Tyrant, which gave him more strength and the ability to manipulate elements. Soon after, our hero drew more bronze rank items and received the zombie control skill. Since he already had this skill, it simply leveled up to level 2. With all his bonuses stacking up, it seemed that no one could defeat him. As he headed out to Mo City, he received a notification that the combat event was about to end, and because of this, some players were already receiving silver rank item rewards. GIE was shocked to realize the event was over, as it was just starting when he entered the labyrinth. The condition for the combat event to start was that 30% of the city had to be above level 10. The event took place in a set location, and the rewards were greater depending on each player's contribution. So GIE and the big idiot decided to have some fun and gain some levels. GIE asked Da Sha to use his hammer to smash the ground, and obeying, he slammed his sledgehammer into the ground, causing rocks to form around his body. Just ahead, they encountered a horde of zombies that was furiously charging toward them. To face the threat, our hero used the 9-Li sword to unleash a ranged slash that hit the zombies, while the big idiot rushed toward them, sledgehammer in hand. He took a great leap into the air and came down hard, slamming his sledgehammer on the ground and crushing the monsters. A short time later, the duo had already defeated the entire horde of zombies. After the battle, the protagonist sat on the sidewalk and took out a fireball scroll. Fortunately, he hadn't given this scroll to the 9-Li orb to absorb, so now he could use it. With it, he easily learned the fireball magic, even managing to envelop his body with fire energy. He could control the flame as he wished, placing it in his hands and manifesting it in various different forms. However, at one point he lost control, and the fire turned against him in a powerful blaze. The protagonist wasn't hurt, and decided to continue trying to master the magic. A good while passed, and he was already tired of manipulating the fire with his hands. It was then that he learned to control the fireball magic through his Green Emperor class, using his mind to create a sphere of fire that exploded when thrown, with the damage being calculated based on his mind attribute. Our hero tested the new skill and thought it was good that a single scroll had taught him an entire spell. He figured that shops in other cities must also have magic scrolls, and that he could buy them in the future. After that, he decided to look for a chicken for the big idiot to eat, and decided to check if the other cities were already starting their own combat and agility events. In Jing City, the Li family was annoyed at only holding the 3rd position in the rankings, as they wanted first place to attract more attention. One of their soldiers reported that they could reach 2nd place but expressed concern regarding Zhang. The head of the family then asked if a fight to the death would be necessary, and the soldier explained that Zhang had an army. Despite this, he tried to reassure the head, saying that the 3 families were united and that Zhang would be smart enough not to attack any of them. Annoyed by the hesitation, the leader of the Li family ordered his men to take first place at any cost, and all the soldiers agreed to carry out the order, regardless of the method. As the soldiers were leaving, the chief called one of them, Shijing Shan, and gave him a specific mission. He was to find out why Rongjian was not yet on the list, and also resolve the issue with Zhang Yuan. The soldier confirmed he understood, and said he would need to get equipment for the task. After he left, the head of the family remained uneasy, feeling that something was wrong. Determined to find Hao Bo and lead the Li family back to the top amidst the chaos, he entered a room, moved a vase, and revealed a secret passage, disappearing behind his bookshelf toward a hidden location in his mansion. Meanwhile, in the urban area of Mo City, our hero was using his fireball to pulverize several zombies. During the fight, a zombie leaped to attack him from behind, but he noticed the movement in time. With his sword already in hand, he turned and delivered a precise strike, eliminating the creature. With this victory, he managed to reach level 21, and received 4 points to distribute, which he used to increase his mind points and enhance the power of his spells. Lin Zilo and the big idiot continued their journey and soon reached the edge of Mo City. They discovered that the exit to the other cities was blocked by a barrier that would only open after some time. Unwilling to wait, Lin Zilo used his special key to break through the blue barrier at the border. As he did so, he noticed a completely black space on the other side, and figured it might be a checkpoint, so he told the big idiot to follow him. They crossed the border and entered the dark space, which led them to a completely empty room. Suddenly, a system message informed them that they had broken strict rules and would be sent back to where they were. Seizing the opportunity, Lindsay Lowe and the Big Idiot requested to be sent to Jing City, arguing that the next combat event would be there, and it would be better to be teleported than to go on foot. To their relief, the request was approved, and the system announced that the two players would be teleported to the border of Jing City. After sighing in relief, they finally arrived at the border of Jing, but were caught by surprise to find the place swarming with zombies. Without wasting time, our hero took out his 9-li sword while the Big Idiot wielded his sledgehammer, and together they began to destroy the creatures in the area. They defeated piles of monsters, using potions to recover stamina during the intense battle. As a result of the combat, our protagonist reached level 22 and gained 5 more attribute points. Suddenly, they hear a terrifying noise and start running as fast as they can, fleeing from a horde of zombies that is swiftly chasing them. To escape, the two climb down a manhole in the city street and shut the lid tightly. In the process, however, GIE accidentally injures the Big Idiot, so they have to wait for him to recover before continuing their escape. The system placed them in the middle of this horde to show that Jing City will be a difficult challenge. Despite the danger, our hero feels more confident seeing his attributes approaching 100. To strengthen himself further, he takes a ring, bracelets, and a glove from his inventory that also increase his attributes. He knows that all these items have some consequences, but he decides to test them to become stronger. Next, he takes a small space ring and gives it to the Big Idiot, so that Dasha can have his own inventory and carry supplement cards and food. After gearing up, they wait for morning to continue their journey. In the meantime, a player from the city recognizes our hero and gets his attention, asking if he plans to join the local event. GIE confirms that he will, and the player, happy to have found them, decides they should travel together. The player finds the Big Idiot's silence strange, but the protagonist explains that he doesn't speak, and the young man agrees to go with them anyway. Since they slept and missed the system announcement, they need someone to explain the situation. The player calls our hero closer and whispers that the event will decide the future of Jing City. He says that a childhood friend who works for the Great Families revealed this information. The protagonist then wonders if the government and the 3 great families have reached a superficial peace to decide who will have the right to speak. He remembers that, in his past life, Jing City was the first to be pacified while players from other cities were still fighting for their lives. Back then, there was a ranking system formed by the government, the military, and the 3 great families that determined the right to speak. If the situation is the same as before, he already has an idea of what to do, but he wonders how simple guards know such confidential information, suspecting that some foul play is involved. Our hero thanks the soldier for the information, and says he will return the favor. He offers his resource cards for 90 gold coins each, and asks how many the young man wants. The boy is very happy, as these cards normally cost more than 100 coins, so GIE's price is practically charity. With that, the protagonist manages to sell 3 cards in exchange for 270 gold coins. While they are making the sale, GIE's female fans watch him with a sparkle in their eyes. One of the girls asks if he would also sell the resource cards to her. He explains that he gave the young man the discount in return for answering his question. The girls understand they don't deserve the same discount, but he offers to sell them the cards for 95 coins each, which is still a great deal. The girls agree and buy the resource cards so they don't have to go to the city's shops. Seeing the opportunity, our hero announces to everyone that, for 1 hour, he will sell a stack of resource cards for 95 coins each. The young man who helped him watches the scene and thinks he is very kind for helping the people in their battles. In reality, the protagonist lost Mo's Medal of Honor due to a lack of coins, and now wants to secure Jing's medal. After this hour of earning money, he and his pet zombie leave the area. Meanwhile, someone warns their boss that the two might be in danger. The boss, however, replies that the Big Idiot is in the top 5 of the rankings and is in good company, so there is no reason to worry. The man reports that the leopard sent 2 men, and that they can gather for the class change. He believes that even though the Big Idiot is strong, he couldn't face many people, so he wants to join them for a big score. However, the hooded man eliminates Xiao Shu, saying that he disappointed him. He wants to see how many will follow the leopard and fall for the bait, but he is also curious to know who Jia is, the person who made the Big Idiot follow him willingly. Soon after, a boy goes after Jia Yi and asks him to wait. The boy warns them to be careful when walking in the city at night, as there are many zombies nearby. He says he knows a safe place for them to spend the night and tells them to follow him. At that moment, Lindsay Luo notices several people approaching and tells them to leave quickly. He says that if their intention is to rob them, they should do it quickly, as he doesn't want to waste time. He counts 32 players, who have already changed their class surrounding them. The thieves claim that he and the big idiot will not escape, as they did business in their territory. They demand half of what they earned that night, and what's left of the resource cards, ordering them not to resist, or else they will resort to violence. In response, our hero materializes his sword, making it clear he won't be robbed just so they can pretend nothing happened. He complains that they made him waste time and takes out his blunt dagger, which deals 200% more damage. Before Jie can attack, the big idiot manifests a large amount of energy and charges at the enemies in a rage, hitting one of them with his sledgehammer and breaking his teeth. Seeing this, the group's leader becomes furious and orders everyone to attack and torture the two of them. Our hero then says that, even though they have changed their profession and think they are strong for defeating zombies, they have just met the two strongest humans in China. At that moment, the protagonist uses his uneven dagger and eliminates a man with ease. Next, he invokes his water magic to create a kind of barrier, surprising all the attackers by striking them with this magic. Even though the attack doesn't harm them, it demonstrates that he possesses elemental magic, and he asks if they still want to continue fighting. After the insult, the big bald leader decides he wants the two of them annihilated. Then, Jie energizes his sword with a purple aura and prepares an attack, cutting down and eliminating several attackers at once. Soon after, he unleashes another heavy slash that takes down more enemies. One of the survivors is shocked by Lin Ziluo's strength, as he eliminates a person with a single blow. He shouts to warn his companions about another attack from the protagonist, who had just launched his spinning sword and taken out another person. Retrieving his sword, Jie asks if the group wants to continue the fight. Immediately, several of them kneel and beg for forgiveness, claiming they have families. Our protagonist says that sparing them will not be a problem. One of the men introduces himself as Li Hao Bo and swears on his family that he would never lie, stating that if the group pays a price, he can spare all of their lives. Everyone starts to deposit gold coins and items for our hero, except for the giant bald leader, who tries to sneak away. Upon being noticed, he returns trembling, and promises to hand over everything he has to be spared. However, Jie tells the big idiot not to leave any of them alive. Obeying the order, the pet zombie used its sledgehammer to annihilate everyone there. The few survivors swore to avenge their leader, and one of them felt a special hatred for the bald man. Meanwhile, from the top of a building, a hooded figure observed the entire scene, noting that the situation in Jing City was about to change. Then, the observer took out a firearm and fired a shot into the air, a sound that immediately alerted our hero, making him realize he had disturbed someone he shouldn't have. Far away, some survivors were arriving at the safe zone of Ji City. Jie expected no less from China's capital, which had built a safe place in less than a month. He remembered that real identities were required to enter the zone, which meant that he and the big idiot would be exposed. Figuring that a place built so quickly must have some flaw, he decided he would try to find a way to break into the place. An hour later, he and the big idiot came across a secret entrance. The two put on their masks and began to sneak in through a door hidden behind a wall. Inside, Jie asked the big idiot to find the map of Jing City, and his pet zombie quickly found what they were looking for. Our protagonist began to analyze the map, deciding he wanted to go to the gymnasium where the individual combat tournament would take place. Nearby, they overheard the conversation of some young people who were talking about wanting to reach the top in the city, and mentioned a certain Zhang, who was awarded the title of general. They heard a rumor that Zhang Yuanzhong was not feeling very well lately. Jie was curious to know if something had happened, as he remembered that in his past life, Zhang had placed third, even though he was number 1 in the level rankings. One of the young men, however, said that this was just a rumor, which could have been spread on purpose by whoever created the gambling game. To prove his point, one of them bet 500 gold coins that General Zhang would place first in the tournament. Interested, our protagonist asked who the gambling dealer was, as he also wanted to place a bet. The young men informed him that he was in a red building across from the gymnasium, and that the game had been created by the 3 families. Jie thanked them for the information, and along with the big idiot, ran to the indicated building. With 3 hours to go before the start of Jing's individual combat tournament, they decided they would go there to bet. They cut in line and went straight to the man selling the betting slips, asking what types of tickets he had. Jie wanted to know what the odds and percentage were for General Zhang to win. The man with glasses replied that the odds of Zhang taking first place were 1.2. Jie noticed right away that there was manipulation behind it, as they were using people's trust in the general to control the odds. So, he decided to buy the bet that Zhang Yuanzhong would place third. The betting man was surprised by the request, but our protagonist confirmed it, betting 20,000 gold coins on the general finishing in third place. One of the young men in line commented that if he won, he would take home 60,000 gold coins, but everyone thought the general was too powerful to place third, and was sure that Lin would lose the bet. Unfazed, Jie also used 20,000 of the big idiot's gold coins to bet on the same third-place finish for Zhang. The betting man was shocked to see him spend 40,000 gold coins on such an absurd bet. Our protagonist simply said he was in a hurry, as the tournament was starting. Then, the big idiot threatened the man to accept the bet quickly and hand over the tickets. The vendor quickly handed over the tickets and the two of them headed to where the tournament would take place. Shortly after, it was announced that the player Jia Yi had entered the Jing City tournament, spending 10 coins. The venue began to fill with people, and the fighters were instructed to wait in the ready area until the tournament began. The two heroes went into the midst of the competitors and soon spotted Zhang Yuanzhong, who was carrying a huge sword. At 2 in the afternoon, the Jing City combat tournament officially begins. Right at the start, one of the fighters taunts his opponent, saying his hand slipped and he ended up eliminating his friend. This enrages Chen Shou, the leader of the leopard group, and an aura of power begins to emanate from him. Noticing this, a man with a giant sledgehammer, who is his opponent, tells Chen Shou to calm down. Observing the scene, our protagonist states that he will be the one to eliminate the man with the sledgehammer. Meanwhile, the big idiot, who is watching the fight, becomes fascinated by the fighter's sledgehammer. Seeing his friend's interest, the protagonist promises that the weapon will be his later. Lindsay Luo understands that as soon as this fight is over, it will be his turn to enter the arena. The crowd begins to comment, recognizing the leader of the leopard group and identifying the other fighter as Shijing, from the Li family. The cheers turn to the member of the Li family, as they think the leader of the mountain leopards has no chance. Jia Yi notes how the spectators are quickly drawn to novelty and have short memories. With the two fighters filled with rage for each other, the combat finally begins. Immediately after, the man with the sledgehammer uses his meteor skill, smashing it into the ground with full force. The impact throws the leader of the leopard group backward, and Shijing calls him weak. Without wasting time, the member of the Li family leaps toward him with his sledgehammer and a sinister look. He possesses the demonic war body talent, which makes him brutal in combat and boosts his stats, and so he attacks the leader of the leopard group with all his might. However, the leader survives the attack and manages to dodge, jumping behind the man with the sledgehammer. While still in the air, he tries to strike his opponent with his sword and manages to leave a cut on his armor. But before he could reposition himself, Shijing unleashes a very powerful blow with his sledgehammer, hitting the boy with full force. The attack sends him flying and causes him immense pain. The boy falls to the ground, and just as Shijing prepares to deliver the final blow, the referee intervenes and ends the fight. You've watched till this end of my content. Thank you. And to keep updated, please follow, subscribe, like, and share my content. See you in the next part.